Everything begins in a bar called Mars Frog. A bell rings and a guy with a scar on his face, carrying a monster's head, walks in. Damn, this bar is pretty modern. I thought it'd be a bit more medieval. He approaches the counter and the bartender asks Old Cow how today's harvest went. He replies that they went to a level 2 secret realm with some beginners. He then asks if things were just getting started over there. Everyone in the bar is watching something on TV saying that the execution's about to begin. The room is full of congressmen, so we already know it's a bunch of no-good bastards. A guy holding a sheet of paper announces that there were 325 votes in favor and none against. In the 7th year of the Gregorian calendar, the expulsion of the Mask was approved. A blonde president named He Yao informs the man with the codename The Mask that evidence suggests he committed massacres during the war and killed over 30,000 people while trying to stand against the high ranks of this federation. He also launched surprise attacks against people from another world, worsening relations between the two worlds. Considering all this, the Supreme Court sentenced him to death. The masked mask is horrifying, but it's fine because he'll be taking it off soon enough. However, He Yao then says that considering all the contributions he made for humanity by driving out the invaders, Congress decided only to remove his positions as Supreme Leader of the Union and Supreme Commander. The only thing left for him would be the special title of Hero, and as someone who would carry the special title of Hero of the Union, if anything were to happen again, he would be required to join the military forces. The people in the bar are just watching. One guy comments that if it weren't for the mask stopping the creatures from the other world, Earth would have already fallen to calamities. However, the Walmart Gojo argues that he didn't make much of a difference, saying instead that it was the great hero President He Yao who commanded everything. The old man insists, saying that before the mask appeared, even the heroes had lost the will to fight. However, the boy in the red shirt insists that without the whole group, they wouldn't have defeated the demons. He says the mask is a crazy guy who even claimed people were being corrupted by some indescribable power. Clearly, he wanted to start a new revolution and drag this whole land back to those days of struggle. Either the mask was a lunatic or he was the kind of person who would rather see the entire world at war so he could command everyone. The old man says that things were way too complicated to try to sum up like that. Back at the Congress, Yao tells the mask to leave with the special hero title, saying that humanity would not forget all he contributed in fighting the mutants. Given all the crimes he had committed, they were being extremely merciful in giving him only this punishment. After a moment of silence, the mask finally opened his eyes. He sees Yao and looking around, he notices all the congressmen and wonders what is happening. He remembers just receiving an attack from the King of the Night Weavers. However, he clearly recalls that this was where he was betrayed by his comrades at the very beginning. Maybe it was that thing where people see their life flash before their eyes. But here it comes, guys, the darkness system, all dark and twisted. His goal was to rebuild humanity, and he would have to choose one of two paths. The first was the hero's path. A new threat had arisen and humanity couldn't understand the new enemy. As a hero, he would continue acting from the shadows and protecting humanity. The second was the path of the monster. The same silent threat had appeared, but the foolish humans couldn't understand why he was acting this way. Since humanity intended to get rid of the hero, he would have to become a villain without mercy, awakening the darkness. Then he is notified that 20 minutes after making his choice, he would be teleported to an F-rank dungeon. That's when the boy starts to realize he may have really gone back in time. I thought he was already in the future, but it seems like this pass is a disaster itself. And at this exact moment, he stands at the crossroads of two different stories. However, this time he has to make a different choice. He's going to choose the path of a monster. Hidao then asks if this silence he's showing is an expression of his dissatisfaction with the judgment. The president, however, knows very well that this guy is a hero, incomparable to any other existence in this world. However, as a leader, he lacked any knowledge of politics, and his mere existence was hindering the interests of countless important people. That's why, over the past few years, the Union has been doing everything possible to tarnish his reputation and how society views him, turning the former special hero into someone seen as merely a nuisance for everyone. And now the time had come for the grand judgment that would finally banish him. From this day on, he would become a statue that served no purpose. If he sees this day through, everyone will believe that he's the type of person who loves war and craves power above all others. However, the mask says he has an objection. This was what everyone expected, and Yao even smiles. At the bar, a guy comments that it was obvious the mask would refuse since he loves war and wouldn't give up the power he has. Someone like him only got to where he is because hundreds of thousands of people sacrificed themselves for him, so he should just die. However, what the mask says is that he will abandon the title of special hero. Everyone in the bar is confused and Yao bangs the table, asking what he just said. The mask repeats, saying he will no longer be a hero to this place. He's already tired of it. Hyo insists, asking if he's only doing this to show dissatisfaction with the Congress's decisions. But the hero says that's not the case. He is completely satisfied and all he feels is tranquility. Angrily, Hyo wonders why this damn guy won't accept the path of becoming a silent hero who supported humanity until the end. Refusing the title and responsibilities was a way of showing tyranny against the Union. He yells, saying the mask can't just walk away, and the mask asks if he has anything else to say. He now states that since he gave up the title of special hero, he also couldn't walk around with the power he possessed. A deep web gojo asks what he's trying to say, and another guy replies that it's obvious. He wants the mask to give up all the power he has. The fool beside him questions why giving up the title became about giving up power too. The girl at the counter asks what the mask level is, and the guy next to her says he thinks it's level 13. Old Kiel confirms, saying that the mask is indeed level 13, which is 4 levels above the actual president himself. Even today, there was no one other than the mask who could handle a dungeon above level 10. And even in the future, he doubts anyone like that will appear. Back in the Congress, Yao says that the mask is only so strong because he received all the resources of that place. But he actually belongs to the sacrifices made by the people of the Union. He couldn't abandon this position that was given to him through the sweat, blood, and tears of all these people. If he wanted to leave that place in front of everyone's eyes, he would first have to give up all the power he possessed. The mask simply asks what kind of nonsense that is, and Yao and the others immediately look scared. But he just replies, "All right," raises his hand and says he will give up everything. An energy sphere starts forming and the whole place trembles. It keeps growing and the boy is about to launch a spirit bomb. Everyone is already slumped over the table, crying and sweating everywhere. Even Yao, who is just a few levels below, can't stay on his feet, saying that this was way too strong. Despite being a high-level hero, he had to use all this power just to avoid falling to his knees before him. And the mask says that if they want his power, he will return it. He shoots upward and a laser breaks through the top of the building toward the sky. Everyone in the city could see it. They all thought it was a supreme-level monster descending on the city again. Electricity swept through the city, and everyone fainted. Over time, the energy started dissipating. He realized it actually took at least 10 minutes for him to relinquish all that power. But even so, now it was perfect because he had become a common person. There was no longer any reason to fear that man. The mask, however, remains calm and heads toward the door. While Yao celebrates, telling him to leave, he finally takes off that horrible mask and throws it aside. The president warns that as soon as he leaves this place, his death will be imminent. But just as he reaches the door, the system's timer activates and he's teleported. The blonde fool wonders where he ended up, but we already knew that in 20 minutes he'd be sent to an F-rank dungeon, and he was taken right to the mother spider's nest. The scene shifts inside the dungeon, showing a portal. Someone crosses through it, catching everyone's attention. The man says it's his first time in a rank 3 dungeon with monsters between levels 1 and 2. The boss of this place was a level 3 queen spider, and everyone there, at least among them, was level 2, so it should be easy. However, they should be careful because he heard that the monsters here are spiders the size of humans. Finally, after 2 consecutive works without a single woman, a petite woman appears. The one on the left tells little Exe not to be scared, to which she replies that she isn't afraid of this place. Meanwhile, a guy excitedly tells the captain that they need money, so let's go kill these monsters and get rich. One of them, however, says he'd rather be outside watching the mask's trial. The guy responds that they can check it out once they're done with the dungeon since it won't make any difference. The girl says that thanks to the mask's trial, few people were interested in the dungeons, which is why they're here today and will monopolize everything. The leader agrees, saying that's exactly why they're here, and now they need to stop fooling around and start. He tells everyone to give their best, so they finish quickly. But then someone else comes through the portal, and they turn, curious to see who it is. Who could it be? Little Exe is already intrigued, and look who it is, our emo dark boy makes an entrance. The others look confused, wondering who this crazy guy is who showed up without a single piece of equipment. The protagonist looks around, thinking it's been a while since he's seen a low-level dungeon. This brought back memories of the first time he awakened as a hunter. Recently, however, he'd only been hunting in what was known as infinite dungeons, places that were uninhabitable purgatories for humans or cosmic regions dominated by all kinds of creatures, and the monsters in those places looked more like indescribable demons. Now he had returned to level 1 after surrendering all his power, which is why the system sent him here. According to the Monster Path system, he was just getting started. He doesn't know where the Monster Path will take him, but in his past life, he'd proven to himself that it was impossible to save humanity through the hero's path, and now he was eager to become a creature that would shed neither blood nor tears. The leader then asks the boy if he's there to join the dungeon as well and questions where his weapon is. Our guy simply raises his fists, saying that this is his weapon. The leader chuckles, complimenting him, saying that if he's a martial artist, that's great because he won't even need to spend money on equipment. He then apologizes for the boldness but asks what level he is. Given the lack of equipment, the leader wasn't kidding. He wonders if the guy came here wanting to die, being only level 1. However, our guy just raises his arm and says he's there to defeat the creatures. One of the guys laughs, saying that at level 1 and without equipment, he wouldn't even be able to beat the healer they have. The fool in the background suggests he'd be better off waiting outside for an easier dungeon to open. Our guy tells them not to worry as he won't cause any trouble. The leader says that if he's so eager to die, he won't forbid it, but he shouldn't expect anyone to save him if things go wrong. Before he can respond, the leader is already calling the group to order. Meanwhile, Little Kase is just observing him, intrigued. In the cave, the mage has plenty of fire to launch fireballs. Precisely, she blasts the creatures, proving she's a talented girl. Meanwhile, the archer with a fool's expression lands his shots, saving the captain at just the right moment. The captain, excited, praises the team's synergy as the spear wielder takes down another creature, while the captain slashes through another. Our protagonist just observes everything. I'm not sure if I should call her Xizinha or Little Xi. I think Little Xi is better. Right. She approaches, saying that Captain's song was a bit harsh with our guy. She tells him not to take it personally, explaining that the captain knows people like him had a high chance of dying, which is why he'd rather not have him around. She warns our guy that if he makes a single mistake, he'll end up dead. But the protagonist simply responds that today's weak hunters are much better than the ones from the past, all thanks to the blood and sweat shed by the heroes of old. The girl, impressed despite his youth, remarks that he speaks as if he were one of the Union's strong ones. But she agrees, saying that this is all thanks to the hero in the mask. The changes in hunter training that he taught everyone allowed teams to be better formed and weapons to be better chosen. That's why the number of people dying in low-level dungeons has dropped significantly. She apologizes for talking so much without introducing herself. She then says her name is Yang Sixi, and she's a level 2 healer. Our fist boy protagonist, nothing better than a healer and a protagonist to set up a little pairing. Our guy introduces himself as Xiao Q, a level 1 hunter, and his class hasn't been decided yet. She's a bit puzzled by his indecision and replies that he must want to think a bit more about which path to take. The truth is that he's already proficient in most of the classes available around here. This is because he explored everything before everyone else and was the one who discovered most of these classes. She then mentions that, judging by his physique, he's not suited to be a tanker. Damn, calling him skinny in the dungeon world. What a roast. She asks if he's tested his vitality yet, noting he could become a mage. Although mages don't survive very long, they can cause big explosions and take down lots of monsters. She then falls silent, apologizing for talking too much. But something grabs her arm, pulling her back. A purple strike flashes, and our guy springs into action. The man warns that a shadow spider has appeared. Damn, this looks like purple solo leveling. Someone lands a blow, and it's our protagonist grabbing the spider's leg. With a powerful finger strike, he rips it off right in the middle. Poor little spider had no idea who it was up against. He uses the creature's leg to pin its head. Brutal. Right. The creature writhes in agony, its body twisting as it collapses to the ground. Little Kekse clings to him from behind. Relax, girl, he's already saved you. The rest of the party is now in shock, and the leader wonders if the martial artist class is really this strong. One of them, however, points out that he's seen hundreds of martial artists, and none of them were on this level. Clearly, this guy knew the spider's weakest joint and used minimal force to grab its leg. This guy had a perfect understanding of the anatomy of these monsters and used pure skill to defeat a creature of a higher level. Our guy then asks Little Exe how long she plans to keep holding on. She doesn't let go, and he jokes that he's being strangled to death. A bit of an exaggeration, don't you think? She steps back, flustered, and retreats. Xiao Q then gains experience in the system, seeing that nothing changed after choosing the monster path. He doesn't have to worry about ranks, nor does he need to worry about certain restrictions. He just needs to kill monsters, which is why in his past life he managed to reach such a high level. And with all the knowledge he already possesses, he'll evolve even faster this time. Song then apologizes, saying the boy truly seems special and that he misjudged him. He approaches, thanks him for saving Sixi, and says he'll be added to the reward pool. However, our guy simply replies that it was nothing, since saving someone in a dungeon is always natural. The leader, a bit embarrassed, says that makes sense, though he knows that this brat is provoking him on purpose. A little later, the leader is slashing through some spiders with a heap of corpses already on the ground. He announces that the boss must be close ahead. He turns to everyone and tells them that the plan will be the usual one. He'll attract attention while they attack. He then looks to the fire mage and tells her to be ready to unleash fire on the creatures while he retreats. The archer remarks that they've been so fast that the trial of the mask might still be happening. But another guy says it's useless to worry about that because that damn hypocrite will surely be found guilty. The archer, however, says he's curious to know what he looks like under that mask since no one has seen his face yet. The fire mage mentions rumors that the guy might actually be a woman. She can't believe that the person she once thought was humanity's savior could cause a massacre in the city. But little Kaze speaks up, telling them not to say such things. She curved that the city he destroyed was one where the population had already been infected by a virus that turned them all into monsters. She's certain that the mask only did it because it was the only option. The guy with the spear scoffs, saying she's still defending him. She must be one of those crazy online fans. The leader tells them to cut the chatter and focus on the boss, saying they're embarrassing themselves in front of the boy by talking about such things here. He heads toward the door, saying it's time to end this once and for all. Now, in a part of the dungeon filled with spider webs, the spear guy comments that the atmosphere truly feels like the end of this place. The archer is eager for the treasure, while the mage wants to dissect the boss. Something stirs, and they all freeze in fright. The red spider boss appears. The leader quickly announces he'll grab its attention while everyone else attacks. The creature lunges and he trades a few blows with it. Then the archer sneaks up from behind and lands a series of headshots. Xiao Fu dodges effortlessly, realizing that creatures at this level really have no intelligence whatsoever. He prepares a punch, remarking that all they need to do is coordinate properly. He lands a hit on the spider's leg, noting that handling it is actually going to be very easy. The mage is busy with her fire, burning the poor spider, while little Xi is casting her healing spell as the spider tries to resist. But after a little while, the spider collapses to the ground and the leader praises everyone for their teamwork. Now it's just a matter of dividing up the rewards from this level 3 dungeon and making sure to remember our guy. However, Xiao Hu finds it odd since the system had mentioned it would be an F-ranked dungeon. Something feels strange, and the guy with the spear mentions that, worse yet, the chest hasn't appeared. The mage then says she senses something just up ahead. Then the schoolgirl appears. Here we go, folks. The mage is puzzled to see a helmet with an astronaut design on the girl's head. The leader points out that she seems to be the reason why the chest hasn't shown up, probably because she's the real boss of this place. The spearman says she doesn't look intimidating, so handling her should be easy. That is until her devil eyes show up. She's trembling all over. Who knows what's going on with this maniac? But she charges right at them. The fool attempts a thrust, but the archer warns that she'll dodge something so simple. And yet, the attack lands, stabbing her right in the stomach. Or should I say, through it. The crew just watches this. He turns and comments that she doesn't seem that difficult to deal with. He pulls his spear, telling her to just die, but webs shoot out from her stomach, and his arm gets caught. Now he's face to face and disarmed. And now, yep, she's already broken his arms, and he's writhing in pain. The archer screams for his brother, and the leader tells everyone to prepare, mentioning that she has some special attacks. The mage gets ready to burn the web with her flame. She conjures a blaze around the girl, just as the archer advances. Oh, man, foolish move. You forgot that you're supposed to stay at a distance, right? Suddenly, he stops face to face with the flames and multiple legs begin to emerge. Scared now, huh? It's the 6-legged high school spider boss. Okay, this boss is on another level. Obviously, no one's ever seen such mental insanity. Meanwhile, the broken-armed guy is running in a frenzy. Then that big old foot comes down, yep, you guessed it, right in the middle of the chest. This isn't what people mean when they say they like being stepped on by someone. In full acrobatics, her leg stretches out insanely far. Now the archer is ready to make a fool of himself, shouting that he'll kill this bastard. But our guy warns him not to act recklessly. Judging by the creature's strength, the result won't be any different than what happened to his friend. He's shaken, but the leader agrees, saying they won't win by attacking without a plan. He turns to the mage and asks how long until the portals appear, and she says it'll take at least 3 hours. The leader decides they'll have to try to survive by running away until then. However, the creature is already moving in their direction. She prepares another strike and unleashes another web blast from her stomach. Now the fool's arm is caught. The archer fires an attack, shouting the captain's name, but the stomach spider sends another web barrage. Oh, now the other fool's caught too. The two fools are being pulled in for a hug. Man, everything's coming out of that cursed stomach. Schuld fought twice before making that stab. And the poor guy is about to get swallowed whole. Oh man, I thought our protagonist would save him. But nope. Looks like he's only going to save the women as the two of them stand there terrified while the other guy's already been eaten. Another one drops and the leader seems to be only one still standing, activating a red aura. He slashes towards her, seemingly cutting the webs between them. However, he's shocked to see she blocked the blow with her own leg. He ducks as she tries to grab him by the arm, realizing he's about to get eaten, thinking this might be the end for him. Just then, someone yells, telling him to hand over the sword. It's our guy saying the only solution is to cut off his arm in this situation. The leader is stunned, but knowing it's the only way, he hands over the sword. Our guy doesn't hesitate. He takes it, jumps up, and cuts. Honestly, I thought he'd cut the web like a plot twist. But nope, straight to the arm. The poor guy writhes, probably thinking he was in some hero's nice guy story. The big spider girl is dancing around like a lunatic as our guy runs off with the armless leader. Little Xi runs over, casting a healing spell, but the poor fire mage is left behind, panicking and yelling that she doesn't want to die. Meanwhile, little Xi asks how they're going to escape. Xiaofu responds that escaping is impossible. The only reason the creature let them go is that she enjoys watching others in fear. This type of monster, known as the Chosen, feeds on the negative feelings of ordinary people. Little Xi is completely confused, but our protagonist explains that these creatures are chosen by gods from the other world. After that, they go through a transformation that gives them a strange appearance. Xiaofu has killed countless of these gods, but now he can't even handle this monster. The spider schoolgirl is advancing, moving fiercely, her numerous legs barely keeping up. Once again, something is oozing out of her torn stomach. Little Xi senses something wrong in the air and quickly activates a shield for everyone. However, the mage isn't nearby and she quickly becomes dizzy, seemingly about to collapse. The healer explains that it's a type of poison that induces mind control. The spider approaches until she seems to notice something strange. She looks confused, as if wondering why he hasn't become food yet. Naturally, it's our guide, who states that although he has lost his strength, he hasn't lost his mental fortitude, adding that her control over him is still too weak. And at that exact moment, she is in trouble. His transformation into a monster has begun. He steps forward, saying he should thank her. If it weren't for her endangering everyone's lives there, he wouldn't have wanted to fight seriously. And as a mere chosen, she should feel proud to be the first to witness this form of his. This guy at level 1 already looks like a level 99 boss. The poor spider tries to use her power, but girl, I think you're about to get thrashed. He takes a stance like Usain Bolt at the starting line, prepares himself, and explodes toward her. She stands there, shocked, attempting to lift her legs, but before she can react, she's slashed. She glances to the side and sees him holding one of her legs. Honestly, it's what she has the most of, so maybe he didn't mean to rip one off, but oh well. She's clearly not okay with this, though, especially given the amount of blood pouring out. The protagonist remarks that despite its length, it's still a good leg. This guy doesn't hold back. The spider, however, sends a web net in his direction. It's the first time he's seen a web shatter the ground. Over his shoulder, someone asks if that's all she's got. It's our Usain Bolt leg collector, who says she's merely a level 4 chosen. She has potential to grow, but unfortunately, he won't let that happen. He goes in for another charge. A barrage of slashes rains down on her, and soon he appears behind her. The guy's considerate, at least he left her one leg to keep her from collapsing to the ground. He releases the remaining scraps and states it's time to end this quickly. Now she's trembling. Using her last leg, she tries to run away. Poor thing, right? But he's already upon her, landing another cut. Now she's lying on the ground, resembling a chopped-up octopus. She's desperately trying to crawl away, but the monster appears in front of her. The protagonist tells her she never imagined her end would come so quickly. He raises his foot and lands a strike on her head. With that, the dungeon is complete, and as a reward, he gains a demon spider leg. Outside the city, our dear little Xi is saying that it's been 2 hours since she was teleported out of the dungeon, and everything that happened there still feels like a dream. As soon as she regained consciousness, she was outside, and the captain was taken to the hospital due to his injuries. Apparently, she and the little fire witch weren't harmed, so they came out unscathed. However, she hasn't seen Xiao yet and wonders if, by any chance, he died. But then she notices something. Our Giga Chad protagonist is standing right in front of her. At this moment, he's looking for a place to stay, but the problem is that any random room will cost over 3,000. Will a kind healer offer a bed to our guy? When he lived as a normal human, his parents supported him, and after becoming a hunter, his only concern was with monsters. While he thinks about how this is the first time he's had to worry about this social concept called money, our dear healer calls out to him. He looks over and calls her the dungeon healer, which, unsurprisingly, doesn't make her happy. She corrects him, asking him to call her Yan Sixi, pronounced as Amazing Sixi, and cheerfully says she's glad to know he's okay too. She notices he's looking at a list of rental places and asks if he's searching for somewhere to stay. He replies yes. She asks if he has any relatives or a place to go, and he says no. All right, folks, here's the setup. She's now deep in thought. Without even answering, we see them heading to her home while she explains that this city was built 40 years after the calamity, and due to the rapid development of the new city, the old city became known as the urban village, and where they arrive is her home. She tells him not to worry as there's a separate room, so there won't be any inconvenience. At the door, he notices a picture, and she explains that it's a medallion her father received after leaving the military. He was a transcendent soldier, and compared to her, who's just level 2, her father was much more impressive. He was a level 5 combat hunter who participated in countless campaigns. He even claimed that he once fought side by side with the masked lord. She, however, says she isn't sure if it's true since he tells that story so often that she doesn't even know if she believes it anymore. Or maybe she's pretty sure it's a lie given that her father drank a lot and she can't imagine the masked lord hanging around with a low-ranking officer. He asks where her father is and she says he passed away. His body bore countless wounds from the wars, and shortly after leaving the army, he died. He asks where her mother is and she says she also passed away while giving birth to her younger sister. Our guy is taken aback, realizing this poor girl has also had a rough life. However, she cheerfully says there's no need to worry. It was a long time ago and she's already moved on. She then invites him inside. She says she'll get a bed for him, but unfortunately, she won't have any clothes for him. She points to a room on the left, saying it's empty, so he can stay there. Our guy is grateful for her kindness and assures her that once he makes some money, he'll repay her for everything. Just then, a wheelchair rolls over and a girl asks, "Who's the fool?" Little Kai tells her not to worry. The boy's name is Xiao Qiu, and she just met him in the dungeon, and he'll be staying with them for a few days. But Chai and Liu looks puzzled and asks if they just met. She says little Exa is being too generous bringing someone like that into their home. This girl isn't one for small talk. She's already done with the conversation. Little Kai apologizes, explaining that her sister is a good person, just a bit shy, and doesn't like to leave the house. Today was the day of the masked lord's trial, whom she's always admired, so maybe she's feeling down. Our guy is impressed that he still has a few fans around. Later, in Little Xi's room, she checks the internet where people are debating whether it was too much for the masked lord to have to surrender all his power. Some are against it, while others are in favor as usual. But Chen Liu, who's furious, says these idiots don't understand that he held onto all those resources because he was the only one who'd save humanity. And there she goes, ready to duel online, tapping furiously on her keyboard. A little later, her sister calls, saying it's time to eat. but Chen Liu says she won't eat today because she's too busy. Little Exie insists, reminding her they have a guest, but her sister replies that it's not like he's the masked lord, so she doesn't have to come out just to say hi. Outside, her sister sighs, saying it's fine. At the table, she says it'll just be the two of them and apologizes for the simple meal. Our guy says it's fine. When he used to live in dungeons, he had to eat raw monster meat, so this is 10 times better. Even though they always knew that food was what gave him the strength to fight for humanity. On TV, someone asks Professor Zhang if he's aware of the incident that occurred during the trial and invites him to share his opinion. Professor Zhang says Congress has its own judgment and citizens should just trust them. However, he mentions a theory circulating online, claiming that this story about him losing his power is all a lie. This is because right after he supposedly lost his power, he vanished in front of everyone. But he notes that it's just a theory, and it might not be true. The reporter then asks if humanity is now at risk, given that they no longer have the masked lord to protect them. Professor Zhang replies that this is an exaggeration, as if humanity got this far thanks to a single person. It was everyone working together that allowed them to overcome these crises. This kind of disillusionment with the masked lord was not only undesirable, but also completely wrong. The two of them keep watching as the man on TV says that even without the masked lord, humanity will continue advancing toward glory. Little Kexi asks if maybe the masked lord really wanted to escape punishment. She notices our guy placing his fourth bowl of rice and asks what he thinks about all of this. He looks a bit puzzled, and she says she wants to know his opinion on the masked lord and his actions. She then shares her own opinion, saying she's sure the masked lord did it all because he had his own reasons. He simply replies, maybe, and she says he's very indifferent. However, she's certain that if her sister, Chen Liu, saw this program, she'd probably smash the TV. Suddenly, they hear someone shouting at the door, asking if they really think they can stay safe hiding in that place. Little Xe says it's the people from the Kazang investment firm. And the person outside yells, asking if they want to find out what it's like to die by fire. With that, little Xi rushes to the door, opening it to see a group of gangsters. One of them says she finally showed up, and another mentions it's rare to see her in this place. She responds to Master Zai, saying she's made it clear she's not going to sell a house. But Zai asks if she doesn't understand the situation she's in. He says he heard her team disbanded because one member got injured and another was killed. Frightened, she asks how they know, and he replies that as a priority client, they're clearly keeping close tabs on everything happening with her. Man, you could already arrest this guy. He's barely started his act, and he's already got his tongue hanging out. What's that about? He asks how she plans to resist now that her only support pillar has fallen. Little Kexa isn't dumb. She knows exactly what this creep wants. He says he'll give them 5 days to consider the offer. Otherwise, things will get complicated around here. They transfer 100,000 if she accepted and handed over the property to them. Confused, she asks why it's only 100,000 when the offer was previously 3 million. Even though she never considered selling, 100,000 is ridiculous. Zai replies that the market's crazy and sometimes property prices can change from one day to the next. Kai steps forward and asks what he's complaining about since he knows she has at least 30,000 saved, given that she spends everything just taking care of her sister. Then someone else approaches and the man asks who's behind her. The newcomer steps in, saying he didn't know she liked older guys. He extends a hand and introduces himself as Kenzei. Quite the Japanese-sounding name, right? He says he's one of the leaders of the Cajun investment firm, and our protagonist goes to shake his hand. But just as their hands meet, little Xi warns him to be careful, as this guy is skilled in physical strength. The handshake turns into a trap as the man uses all of his power to crush our guy's hand. But the protagonist remains calm until he also activates something in his gaze. Surprisingly, Kenzei attempts to invade his mental field, saying he'll destroy everything he has, intending to trap the poor boy in a coma for half a month. Yet, as he navigates through the mental field, he wonders why he can't locate the core, which he usually finds instantly. That's when he realizes our guy's mind is vast, so vast that Kenzei can't grasp its depths and wonders just how powerful he is. Now panicked, he knows he needs to escape from here. However, he's faced with a mental wave that submerges him, a chaotic experience in his own mind. Realizing his mistake, Kenzei feels himself drowning in mental force, and just beneath the water, a creature stares at him. In desperation, he screams, calling it a monster. Meanwhile, outside he's passed out and his men call for their boss. Little Kenzei has no idea what's happening and thinks the guy's putting on some kind of act, pretending to be ill to intimidate them. But one of the other men goes to punch the protagonist, demanding to know what he did to the boss. Another man stops him, saying he'd better be cautious since the boy took down their boss. If it happened that fast, he's sure the boy is at least a level 3 psychic. He helps their unconscious boss and sarcastically tells Xi he never expected her to find such a powerful boyfriend. Then he leaves, warning that what they did won't go unpunished. Little Xi then asks our guy if the man passed out because of him. Xiao Fu tries to explain that he actually didn't do anything. He knows the guy kind of knocked himself out trying to confront his mental field. He then asks if they've been causing her trouble for a long time, to which she replies that it's been going on for 4 years. Right after her father died, they showed up, interested in buying the house as an investment. At that time, they didn't need money, so they refused. But because of that, they've been constantly threatening her sister whenever she goes out to earn money. That's when she joined Captain Song's team, which always helped drive these guys away. But now that the captain's in the hospital, they're back. Our guy asks why she didn't reach out to the government, pointing out that people who are relatives of those who fought in the war should receive support. She explains that she doesn't think it's worth it for the government to get involved in this. It seems groups of companies like Kaijiang provide them with money, so they'd rather not intervene in this kind of thing. Xiao Chu immediately understands that it's all just corruption as usual. But he simply says that while he's staying in the house, he'll help with the chores. However, little Hase says he's already done enough by driving those guys away and then asks what he plans to do next, wondering if he'll look for another team to go into more dungeons. He replies yes and asks what her plans are. She says she's hopeful that Song will regain consciousness. Otherwise, she'll have to find another team, which is quite difficult. Nowadays, it's common for teams to have traitors and people who do terrible things to each other, even though in the past, the Masked Lord established the rules and laws prohibiting humans from killing each other in dungeons. She reassures Xiao Q, saying that if she finds a trustworthy group, she'll recommend him as well. Our guy thanks her, though he knows very well that now that he's become a monster, being in a team with many people isn't ideal. Whether now or in the future, the path of a monster will always be solitary. Just then, a system notification appears. He receives a quest directing him to the Corridor of the Night, a level 4 dungeon that, according to the system, isn't too difficult, though it requires him to go alone. No need to hesitate. He's already stepping through the portal and entering the dungeon. The overpowered system has a teleportation feature prepared within it. As soon as he enters, he recognizes the European architecture. Quite cultured, isn't he? He looks around and sees a bunch of gargoyles, which clearly don't look very friendly. He seems to recognize them and thinks it's wild to have to face these right off the bat. The gargoyles start moving, open their eyes, and let out a roar. They're level 3 creatures, but our guy doesn't seem that intimidated. The issue with these monsters is that they have tough skin, plenty of muscle, and are even resistant to magic. Facing this type of creature alone was always a problem. If the Luxi's team were here, the poor guy would be defeated once again. The gargoyles lunge at him, but he grabs each by the neck as he begins his transformation. It was unfortunate for these gargoyles to have run into him. Time passes, and he's now in the corridor of a giant cathedral. There's another dozen gargoyles. Actually, way more than a dozen. He's completely surrounded. But now fully transformed, he simply motions for them to come at him. The poor things are about to get pummeled as they break free, taking to the air and surrounding him from above. The boy crouches, leaps, and starts taking them down one by one. A kick here, a slice there. He crushes the chest of one, and in seconds, only shattered stones remain on the ground. He grabs the last trembling gargoyle by the wings and asks why it looks so scared, given that gargoyles aren't supposed to have emotions. It tries to escape, but he tears it in half. Just as he's about to leave, something lands on his back. It's a bald gargoyle, a level 4 boss. Our protagonist marvels at how it has a human-like appearance despite being a monster, which only makes him more eager to finish it off quickly. The fight gets intense, and someone kicks open the door. Another group seems to have arrived but is met with piles of stones on the floor. One of them asks the captain if it's only been 12 hours since this dungeon appeared, so they should have been the first team inside. The captain confirms this as the analysis team assured him that the entrance was sealed. However, the girl, meticulously drawn with great attention to detail, tells the captain that someone exceptional passed through here before them. You could tell by the fragments of monsters that someone had been slicing them in half, which is odd since this type of monster should be defeated with impact weapons to shatter them. But someone seemed to have sliced through these creatures. Shocked, the captain asks if the person did this with just their hands. Then one of the men, visibly shaken, tells the captain to take a look. Impaled on one of the pillars is the defeated boss. The scene then shifts to the inspection agency in Dahar City. Someone slams a document onto the table and asks why nothing has been fixed after such a major oversight. It's a bearded man who states that the last 7 teams entering the dungeons haven't found a single living monster. This clearly shows they're failing at their job as someone is clearing out everything without even registering. One man, however, asks if that isn't a good thing, since someone was going to clear out these dungeons eventually. But the chief bangs his fist on the table, saying that this is clearly illegal conduct and they need to put an end to it. First, it's risky to let one person hoard all the resources, and on top of that, this individual could set traps for other teams entering alone. He says that this younger generation has never experienced the barbaric times when people used to kill each other in dungeons. That's why this agency was created, to prevent lives from being lost in such a ridiculous manner. He then instructs them to continue investigating, mentioning the level 4 gargoyle dungeon that seemed to have been cleared by a single person. Given the destruction left behind, the person should be at least level 4 or 5. One of the women asks why they're so sure it was just one person and not a team. The man explains that if it were a team, the injuries and corpses would be varied, showing the types of weapons each member used. But the evidence indicates that all creatures were killed using sheer brute force. He then mentions they have a plan to track down this person. He instructs everyone to keep an eye on stores and businesses selling items found in these 7 dungeons. The scene shifts to the Hunter's trading market. A merchant hands over money and tells the guy to let him know if he needs anything else. Xiao takes the money, knowing he probably sold it cheap again, judging by the merchant's reaction. But it's not like he has much use for these things anyway. His main focus is to keep completing system missions and growing stronger. At least with this money, he can pay for his stay at Chixie's house. Then he hears someone say that 3,200 is too low. It's Stixie, explaining that although this sword may look old, it's been used to slay countless monsters. The shopkeeper, however, responds that it's precisely for that reason it's worthless, as it's full of flaws. In his view, the item is only worth a bit of the metal it contains, which is why he's offering so little. Poor Xixi looks devastated, realizing her father's sword is being treated as junk. The shopkeeper then says he feels sorry for her and will pay 3,500 so she can stop crying. Staring at the sword, she apologizes, saying she unfortunately has to sell it to pay for the annual hospital bills. But the shopkeeper is quite the sly one. He knows very well that the material used in that sword is extremely valuable, something that can only be found in a few rare dungeons, and he's going to make a fortune once he buys it from her. He tells her to sell it quickly because after today he won't pay 3,500. Then someone steps in, asking them to wait a second. It's our guy, and she asks if he's here to sell something, but he says they'll discuss that later. He takes a look at the sword, and the system immediately gives him a description of the equipment, stating that although it looks like an old sword, it contains rare materials. He says he's interested in the sword, which confuses her a bit. However, the shopkeeper yells, saying that he and the girl had already reached an agreement, so it's very rude for him to interfere. But our guy pulls out a pouch from his pocket and asks if it's enough. The shopkeeper, slightly flustered, says this is madness. A little later, they're sitting on a bench and she stands up, saying she wants to give him the money back because she can't keep more than 1,500. He had saved her countless times already, so this was too much for her. He tells her not to worry as she's already given him a place to stay, and this is just rent money. She insists that this is far more than typical rent, and it doesn't make sense for him to pay so much. However, Xiao explains that the sword is much more valuable than it seems. She says the sword is as mysterious as he is, wanting to figure out so much about him. She says she doesn't understand how he escaped from the spider dungeon before everyone else, how he made so much money so quickly, or how he's so strong. She only hopes he treats the sword well, as it was the last thing her father left her and her sister. The sword is called the Flying Crow, and Xiao says it's like him hidden in the shadows. Little Xe, feeling useless, says she couldn't even protect the last thing her father left behind. But if she didn't sell it, she wouldn't have the money to treat Chen Liu. He asks what kind of treatment she means, and she asks if he knows about the great evil spirit incident in the city of Dai. There was a level 10 creature, and any hunter sent against it disappeared in an instant. All registered hunters, even retired ones, joined the fight, which is how the citizens escaped. That's also the incident in which her father lost his life. But the worst part of that creature's attack was the lethal radiation it spread. The sky turned green and a sphere of radiation energy started expanding. It reached Qian Liu's feet, which is why she can't walk to this day. What's sad is that her sister was incredibly talented, and even her father believed she was the future of this generation. She would have definitely become a level 5 hunter, but today she's still confined to a wheelchair. Meanwhile, little Xity, without any talent herself, ended up becoming a healer. Xiao Fu defeated that creature with one punch, but since he was on the front lines, it took him a while to reach the city, and everything had already happened by the time he arrived. This is one of the few reasons he despises these monsters so much. He then comments that he remembers the government approving funds to be given to people affected by this incident. She looks confused, saying she's never heard of anything like that. She thanks him, saying that being able to share these things with him makes her feel a bit more relieved. She's eager to show off her cooking skills. They pass by some men in suits who wonder if they'll really find the dungeon bandit in this area. One of them replies that if the dungeon guy wanted to make money, they'll eventually find out where he's been selling his goods. It's finally time to figure out who this bandit is. Back at the house, her sister is furious, ready to unleash another keyboard battle against those jerks bad-mouthing the masked lord. Someone knocks on the door and she finds it strange, thinking it doesn't seem like her sister or the guy staying with them. She gets nervous, imagining it might be people from the Kaijiang investment firm. The men are nearly breaking down the door and the poor girl is terrified. She grabs a little wooden sword nearby, hoping to defend herself. Honestly, girl, it might be better if you just turn that wheelchair around and roll away. One of the men kicks down the door, saying he knew someone was home. He looks around, puzzled to see a kid in a wheelchair, and mocks her for thinking that toy would accomplish anything. But the girl charges forward, racing at him in her wheelchair, calling him a bastard. Unfortunately, he dodges her strike, saying he didn't expect her to have so much energy. She falls to the ground, cursing him in defeat. He steps on the sword, asking if she really thought she could cut him with that. Then he orders the rest of the group to search the house and find the two of them, especially that damn kid who had the nerve to knock one of their guys out. The men start tearing the place apart. A while later, they return, saying they searched every room but found no one. Naturally, the leader looks at the poor girl lying on the floor and says that if they can't find him, they'll have to take her instead, believing that will force the boy to come after them. One of the men, visibly shaken, says that, legally speaking, this is called kidnapping. The leader replies that he understands, but this was the only way to make it clear what they were doing here. And since he was questioned, he hands over the car keys, instructing them to hit the car against the house when the others arrive. It would be a small accident, and unfortunately, the car contains some gifts for them. The guy simply says he understands, and the others get excited. Meanwhile, it was raining in the city as the lovebirds were heading home. The little Hesai was already uneasy. What a cruel move, leaving the poor girl lying there in the rain. They might as well have kidnapped her, honestly. She's there vowing to take down those scoundrels. Just then, little Xi runs over, calling for her sister. She lifts her up, explaining that the Kaijiang investment firm did this right after they left. She asks our protagonist to take her sister inside while she cleans up the garden. But as he turns around, he hears a noise behind him. When he looks, a guy has crashed a garbage truck right into the wall, dumping trash all over their house. Poor little Xi ends up covered in garbage. The man apologizes, saying it was just a little accident. It was just a shame it was raining, as the trash would probably get everywhere in their home. He starts to drive away, saying, "Remember, always think of Kaijiang." Her sister is furious, but the protagonist tells her to wait. If she were to go talk to her sister now, it would only make her feel worse. Soaked in garbage, the poor girl walks back, passing them as they stand in the rain, not knowing what to do. Meanwhile, Ken and Liu asks why things like this keep happening to them. She turns to our protagonist, asking if there's no justice in the world. He simply replies that there has never been justice and probably never will be. She asks why those with power don't try to create a better world for everyone, and he tells her it's just an illusion. Even the rain falling on everyone wasn't fair. To them, it's just a nuisance, but to the homeless on the streets, it's a misfortune. Just like this world, rain wasn't fair. He breaks the sword, and she starts crying desperately, the scene laden with drama. The boy is ruthless, telling her that her family's problems were insignificant to him. He wasn't interested in interfering with the injustices and troubles they were facing, as his energy needed to be directed towards something more important. But we all know how these stories go. He says that, but do you think he'll really do nothing? He admits that these problems, however, were starting to give him a nagging headache. She asks where he's going, and he simply says he's going to take care of it. She warns him not to be crazy, reminding him that Kaijiang wasn't a small company, insisting that their problems really are insignificant and he shouldn't risk his life over them. He draws his sword, agreeing but explaining that in his life he's gotten used to fighting for things that, in the end, were insignificant. And since they wanted to bring him a problem, he returned the favor. The scene then shifts to Kaijiang's office. At the entrance, the men are discussing negotiations when our protagonist observes the place. Inside, the building is full of people, until one of them starts to notice something odd. Our protagonist appears at the entrance, sword in hand. One of them laughs, thinking they found another troublemaker. They approach the boy, asking if he knows where he is and telling him to put away his sword. But before they can finish speaking, he's already moved past them. He smiles, and one of them suddenly has an X slashed across his entire body. Wow, the guys are left like chopped potatoes, my friend. The system grants him a quest titled The Blood Sacrifice. The Flying Crow's sword wants to be fed with blood, and he has to eliminate all hostile enemies. And by doing so, he will evolve. He scans the room, and more people come through a doorway. He's quickly surrounded, and the men warn each other to be careful, knowing they can't take this lightly. 4 men jump toward him, but he dodges the first easily, blocks the second's attack, and sends 2 heads flying. Another man appears behind him, but he simply glances back, and the poor guy starts trembling. Poor choice, as he loses an arm a second later. He gets hit in the ribs, something even a butchered pig wouldn't endure. One of them shouts that they found an opening as the sword was stuck, leaping to grab him from behind. But our guy just lets go of the sword and punches him in the stomach. The guy wonders how someone so skilled with a sword has a punch stronger than a tank. Another body hits the ground, and the rest flee in terror. In one of the rooms, someone is celebrating, talking about how soon the sister's house would belong to them. Even though they had to go a little overboard this time, that's just how things worked in this world. The blonde man says it was the best decision since reselling that property will make them a fortune. Just then, someone bursts in, announcing there's a problem. Someone is inside the building, killing everyone. The entire lobby has been massacred, and the man asks how many people are attacking, to which he replies, just one. The boss, knowing that in Kaijiang they only mess with the right people to avoid attracting high-level hunters, is now certain something went wrong and tells them to go check it out. Someone drives a massive axe along the floor. It's the boss with his partner. Looking to the side, he sees a guy with his hands up, looking like he's in a cinematic scene, pleading not to be killed. However, Tom swings a crescent slash, and the guy falls to the ground as someone starts climbing the stairs. It's our sad boy protagonist with those red eyes. Now they're scared, aren't they? He asks them why they're so afraid, since they're all level 4 hunters, so they won't be killed that easily. The blonde understands and conjures an ice spell, while the boss channels red energy into his axe, and another one draws pistols. The protagonist remarks about their level, and the men ask if he's finally realized his mistake. One of them tells the boss that this guy was at Sixie's house and was the one who knocked out Captain Kenziguro. Xiao Chu says it will be a problem to remain in human form and face 3 level 4 hunters. He hits the light and the entire place goes dark. They wonder if he's trying some sort of sneak attack. However, one of them grins and announces that he controls the world in darkness. He activates night vision, claiming that with this ability he's unbeatable in the shadows. But he notices something strange on the floor. It's the devil himself in front of him. He hits a jump scare when he sees the creature. The poor guy must regret activating that green vision now. It would have been better not to see what he's about to die to. Xiao Chu becomes a blur, and the guy tries to react, but before he can take a shot, he's hit squarely in the chest. The captain shouts, asking Joseph what's happening as he senses the smell of blood. When he hears the body hit the ground, he wonders if Joseph is dead. Lightning strikes outside, and a sword slash descends on him. Wow, he managed to block it just in time. The boss knows that if he hadn't reacted, he'd be dead by now. The mage senses something and casts an ice spear in his direction. However, Xiao Ku notices, stretches his hand, and easily blocks it, shattering the ice. He glances back, another enemy speared. With the friend's body in hand, the boss goes to ask something, but is swiftly slashed at the neck as well. Another one down in a second, gone just like that. The flying crow sword had just feasted on fresh blood. More fools were around, and honestly, guys, you should have started running, shouldn't you? But here you are, standing like idiots, staring at a monster in front of you. A second later, jump scare, here he comes. Even the screen goes black, so we feel like we're right there. And now everyone's resting in peace. I told you to run. Then someone yells, enough. A man in a red shirt appears, and our protagonist immediately senses he's a level 6 hunter. He's confused, wondering why a monster is there, but soon realizes he doesn't carry the same barbarity as a creature. He appears to be another type of transformation hunter. Yet oddly, he does carry a monster's scent. The man says he's never seen a being that's a mix of monster and human in this world. Just selling him would be enough to cover everything they've lost here. Whether a monster that turns human or the other way around, he was unlucky to encounter him here. He's thrilled because he knows there are people who pay handsomely for information on creating human-monster hybrids. Honestly, I'm scared to think about what these guys are doing to pursue this. Suddenly, the man also begins to turn into a blur. Whoa, I thought he was transforming, but it was actually an attack aimed right at our protagonist's neck. The whip-like strike breaks a bit of his mask. The level 6 hunter is impressed that he actually managed to dodge it, but now he claims the boy has met his limit. He launches a barrage of attacks, and while our protagonist seems to be trying to defend himself, it doesn't look like he's doing too well. He's hit on the arm, the back, and the thigh. The hunter, however, seems to enjoy this, saying the fun part about killing a monster is having to hit it a lot. Although the creature had high resilience, his attack wasn't something simple. Then he aims one more shot at the boy's chest. Our protagonist dodges to the side, but the man says he's fallen into his trap. The man's hand suddenly transforms into a pistol. What is this? A cheat? And he prepares to fire a blast at his head, or not. The man laughs, saying every time he uses this trick, it works like a charm. Such an explosive bullet at this range should blow anyone's head off. Although it's a pity, he's sure the corpse will be valuable. When the smoke clears, our protagonist is completely intact. Now the man is trembling, he realizes he's screwed. He wonders if the guy dodged, but he concludes it was impossible, which means he hit him directly, but nothing happened. The man tries to say something, but our protagonist merely remarks on the rapier with a standard no, 19. He says that given the guy's power, he must have endured a lot and put in great effort. It's a technique he himself, the masked lord, created while learning to wield the rapier. Although it may look like a simple weapon, it has countless applications along with an extremely high agility attribute. He says that when he created that technique, he warned that it should only be used for justice, so why did the guy learn it? The man, confused, asks if the monster is going crazy since that technique was created by the masked lord. Besides, all this talk of justice was nonsense. After all, killing a creature like this was justice enough. Xiao Chu agrees maybe he is a monster, but they're monsters too for having ruined those people's lives. The guy retorts that he has no idea which of the Kaijiang families he's with. However, he adds there's something a monster like him needs to understand. Humans must always keep evolving, and anyone standing in the way of evolution needs to be stopped. Evolution is true justice, so he's on the right side. Once again, he lunges at Xiao Chu, who now understands how he thinks. A claw appears on his back, and he says, "So, this is justice." The man is startled, but it's already too late. Though he tries to dodge the first attack, he doesn't fully understand what's happening and gets struck on the shoulder. From that first hit, he takes 50 more in quick succession. He falls, thunder crashes, and he's already slumped against the wall. He looks at our boy and asks what kind of monster he is. At that moment, our protagonist reveals he's the masked lord and simply asks if he doesn't remember saying so. With that, he lands another slash, and the guy collapses to the ground. That sword is feasting on blood today. He raises it as it begins to absorb all the blood around. The sword's name changes to Flying Blood Raven, an item of limitless growth corrupted by a demon god. It now holds an ability that releases a massive blood wave capable of splitting the earth in two. Gazing at his reflection in the sword, he reflects on its transformation. While physically it didn't change much, he can now hear something like a heartbeat within it. A demon blade without growth limits wielded by a monster without limits. On the floor, a trembling man mentions the boss's defeat. Xiao Fu looks over and the man begs for his life, but our protagonist simply raises his blade, activating its power. With a blood wave, he cuts through, straight out the other side of the building and across the city. Meanwhile, soldiers have arrived just outside. One salutes and calls to Commander Jiang, informing him that the area is secured. Jiang orders them to prepare for an escort to gather information and ensure innocent lives aren't at risk. But the commander isn't naive. He knows there are few innocent people in Kai Jiang's building. Still, as someone from the government, it's his duty to protect them. Regardless of the excuse, anyone causing trouble deserves punishment. Then someone points out someone exiting through the door. Our protagonist steps out, drenched in blood, looking upwards. Back with little said. She asks him what he was thinking, going in alone with the sword. She grabs an umbrella and rushes out while her sister asks for reassurance. But just as she steps outside, a man appears, introducing himself as part of the city defense squad and asks if she's Yan Sixi. She confirms and he tells her she needs to assist with an investigation. He shows her a picture of our protagonist and asks if she recognizes him. Upon seeing it's Xiao Qiu, she panics, asking if he's still alive. The soldier replies that he's more than alive, actually. The scene shifts to the city defense squad's private prison. The fool who forgot the building had a back door is now locked up like an idiot. Captain Jiang questions him, asking who he is and where he came from. One of the men reports that he confessed to everything that happened at Kai Jiang's building, but all they know about him is his full name, Xiao Qiu, and he has no birth record, no house purchase history, no family background, no documents, nothing. The only thing they found is that he's connected to a woman named Yan Sixi. Plus, the monitoring team had been searching for a so-called dungeon bandit, and this guy fit the description perfectly. The captain says it's all very mysterious and asks about this Stixi's identity. The investigator explains that her father was a level 5 hunter who served in the military. Stixi retired with various injuries and passed away shortly afterward. He had refused an officer position and died in a major spirit-related incident years ago. He adds that in Xiao Ku's testimony, he claimed that when he entered a dungeon with her team, he suddenly joined them, and the reason he attacked Kai Jian was that they were harming her and her sister. The investigator notes that all things considered, he seems more like a hero. Jiang greets the office chief, Arthur, who says it looks like they'll have to go in and ask some questions themselves. Knowing that the commander is level 7 and Arthur is level 6, they figure there's no way they'll be at risk with this guy. The door opens and our protagonist looks over. The old man seems confused by the look on our protagonist's face and quickly realizes that he's looking at his uniform with a nostalgic expression. Man, this guy's talent is reading emotions. What a curse. Just one look and he already knows the boy's feeling nostalgic. With the sheet in his hand, he asks if his name is Xiao Qiu, then mourns that given the crime he committed, he should have an idea of how this will proceed. Either he'll be sentenced to death or there will be another way to pay off the cost of his crime. One option is to be sent to the front lines to face demons until he's redeemed himself in society's eyes. But Jiang knows that most criminals sent there don't survive past the first or second fight. In fact, to get out of there, they'd have to participate in hundreds or even thousands of campaigns. Xiao Fu questions whether, in their eyes, fighting on the front lines is some kind of punishment. He thinks that if that's the case, he should be forgiven for any crime considering what he's already done for them. The old man says, based on his words, it sounds like he's familiar with the front lines and our boy says he spent some time there. Jiang asks if he fought against demons or something else, to which our protagonist says something else. The two men exchange a look for a moment. Jiang knows that very few hunters make it to the front lines and return alive. This means if they check the records, it could eventually uncover his identity. He then tells Xiao Fu that all 3 people in this room have been to the front lines and survived. Arthur humbly considers himself a veteran, having spent over 10 years on the front lines. Only the Masked Lord and a few other heroes have been there longer. Jiang shows off one of his medals, explaining he received them while working alongside the Masked Lord. While they're impressive, he could only follow him from a distance back then. Arthur then slams the table, saying that if Xiao Qiu knows the front lines, he understands how unstable the current community is. What he did could throw the entire world into an abyss. Initially, they seem to be talking about what he caused at Kai Jiang, but they're questioning how he managed to enter dungeons without anyone knowing. At best, it could lead to the deaths of numerous hunters. At worst, it could lead to the entire collapse of the city beyond this world. Xiao Fu stays silent as the two watch him. Jiang warns that as much as he wants to maintain this mysterious aura, resisting the government is completely futile. He stands up and says, for his own future's sake, it's best to tell the truth now, because if he goes to the federal capital, people there won't be as kind. With that, the two leave, but our protagonist doesn't seem too eager to return to that place. However, it seems he won't be able to avoid it. A new mission has appeared, the Great Resurrection of the Malevolent Spirit. The lengthy system text explains that remnants of the first spirit linger in some people's bodies, and it's about to resurrect. He has 72 hours to prepare, and the reward is to receive the malevolent spirit's core. He knows this creature is a disaster-level demon. The The most advanced of these creatures reach level 13, while most are around level 7 or 8. Of course, he knew this creature would show up without the system's warning. This is a monster that, as long as a single molecule of it continues to exist, will eventually resurrect. In the end, it was always him who had to rush back from the front lines to save everyone. No matter how fast he arrived, the media always criticized him. Everyone complained, wanting to know why he took so long and why he wasn't punished for it. Some argue that if the spirit returned, it was because he didn't handle it properly the first time. If countless people died because of this creature, they said he should apologize. He had to present himself to the public, apologizing again in that life. But now, living as a monster, things are entirely different. The masked lord who would be judged in the future no longer exists, having abandoned his powers. And if now countless people die, that no longer concerns him. The scene shifts to Arthur, who asks Jang what he thinks of the boy. Jang replies that he retired from the front lines long ago, so he has no idea what he's talking about. But one thing's certain, in all his time there, he's never seen a young person with such power. Judging by the marks on the Kaijian building, he possesses incredible speed and terrifying strength. Even the sword he used seems strange. He's definitely not a one-specialty hunter. He likely has multiple professions. Arthur asks if this is what people call a genius. Normally, most hunters cap at level 6, but this guy killed level 6 fighters and is still young. Jiang says maybe he is a genius, but a foolish one, having thrown his life away for the idiots at Kaijian. The man agrees, mentioning that this union even put the masked lord on trial, so they can't put anything past them. Compared to that, they wouldn't hesitate for a second to end this genius boy's life. The scene then shifts to the capital city of Xing. Due to humanity's struggle, they managed to recover from the Age of Darkness. However, while some cities still live in the 20th century, others have already advanced into the 21st. The city of Xing is known as the science of the future. Indeed, officials comment that it's extremely violent for someone to have killed so many people like that. Such a brutal killer must still think he lives in a barbaric age. Returning to President Yao from earlier, he notes that the boy has some talent. However, others pound the table, arguing that talent doesn't matter if he acts like this. If they don't punish someone who behaves this way, what will the public think? They must make this public and deliver justice for all the victims. One person is fuming because he used to make a fortune from Kaijiang's existence. He now agrees, saying the best option would be to send this criminal to the front lines. The man appears dissatisfied and asks why a public punishment isn't being considered. The people funding him won't be pleased if this man isn't held accountable for what happened. However, Yao calmly tells him to stay quiet as there's something more important to discuss. He wants to know why, to this day, no one has found any information on the masked lord. The room falls silent. The blonde-haired man remarks that for a person to vanish without a trace is impossible. He must be somewhere on this earth, and they must find him as quickly as possible. The lack of information leaves them all worried that they may someday be ambushed by the masked lord. The team urged the boss to calm down, saying that the mask no longer had any power and wouldn't be able to do anything. However, Yao, despite being a villain, wasn't stupid and said that if he appeared, it meant he had some kind of plan. Another member replied that even if he had a plan, he had given up so much power that he couldn't really do anything now. For him to seek revenge, he would need a lot of people by his side at this point. Alone as he was, they were immune to anything he might try. Yao closed his eyes and said that this only meant he would eventually become a danger to their future. Yao knew that now, as the president, there was no one above him, and the only threat would be anyone who could take him out of this position. One of the issues, however, was that to gain the support of everyone, he had to give up various perks and benefits to those council members. He then addressed the group once more, saying that for everyone's safety, they would need to fully control the mask. Another guy then said he understood and that it was time to discuss something more important at the moment. The demonic front lines were weakening and the number of creatures had increased by 32% in the last month. He now asked if, without that damned mask, things had really gotten worse this quickly. A trembling man replied that, unfortunately, yes. He asked if, perhaps, they had gone too far in the way they dealt with the mask. After all, even though he carried the title of Savior of Humanity, he never interfered much and wasn't a big problem. But Yao, already angered, asked if he was questioning this group's decision. Immediately, the fool backed off, saying he would never dare to do something like that. While the president shouted, he questioned why this place couldn't survive without that damned mask. He commented about the city having some elite warriors and ordered that they be sent to the front lines immediately. However, one man said he didn't recommend it, as if a disaster-level creature suddenly appeared, there would be no one to protect those places. But another man smiled and asked if his real interest wasn't actually in the profits the defense squad brought. The equipment they used was supplied by this man's family, which meant that if the army disappeared, they would lose a lot of money. The man shouted, saying it was slander. However, Yao slammed the table. He announced that it was decided and the defense squad would be deployed. And looking over Xiao Ku's file, he said this person was perfect to be made an example of. The scene then shifted to the defense squad office in Da City. Someone was speaking with the two sisters, saying that since they were involved in the investigation, they could return home. However, in the future, it might be called as witnesses in court. Kui and Liu asked what they would testify about, The woman replied that it would be to testify against this heinous criminal who caused that disaster. But Chen Liu asked why he was being treated that way, as those who deserved such punishment were that group of trash. Yes, choosing her words carefully, the army woman said that nonetheless he had killed a dozen people, so murder was wrong no matter what. However, Chen Liu insisted and asked if the people he killed were model citizens. She knew very well that they were a bunch of garbage who had ruined countless lives. It was then that Zhang appeared and said that she was right, and indeed, those people had destroyed countless families. He said they all deserved death, and even the military woman was shocked. Chen Liu made a face and Zhang approached, warning her that although they deserved death, they needed to be judged first. She then pressed, asking why they were not judged and had turned her life into darkness. The commander replies that even something that shines brightly can't always dispel all shadows. She then asks if he's saying that resisting is futile. Zhang stares at her for a second and says that actually trying to resist alone is futile. She grips the chair and says that if even resisting is wrong, then the very existence of that whole world is wrong. Stixie is there beside her, just thinking that although she's experienced injustice countless times, she'd never have the courage to say something like that in front of the captain. At this point, her sister says it's better for them to go home, and Stixie just agrees. As soon as they leave, the commander says that if only that girl could walk. The woman beside him asks why he's saying something like that. He responds that the hatred and sense of injustice she feels are the source and strength of many people. If you could measure emotions by strength, she would surely have a very high level. If only in the past he could have carried so much rage like that too. The army woman is a bit confused by the commander's interest in the girl. She thinks that sitting in a wheelchair, that rage wouldn't serve any purpose. Little Cassie tells her sister to rest while she tidies up the garden, thinking about how they would help Xiao Hu. Her sister stays silent for a second, then seems determined. She stands on the chair and begins saying to herself that if there are places in this world where light doesn't reach, she would become the light that shines on those places. Her leg starts trembling and suddenly she begins to walk. What's this, girl? All right then. Already standing and shaking, but standing nonetheless. Her sister was about to go back to say she'd forgotten something, and then she's startled to see Chuan Liu standing in front of her. Chuan Liu stretches out her hand and tells her sister to run away. Man, here comes something dark. Could she be about to become the city's demon? Meanwhile, at the defense squad in the city, everyone is angry about being sent to the front lines. Jiang shows up to talk to everyone, but that's when he feels something strange. He goes up to the window and says there's no mistake because he recognizes that energy. It was the presence of an evil spirit. Alarmed, the officers say something like that is impossible. However, Jiang just punches the glass and calls for a military emergency, throwing himself out of the building, saying he'd take responsibility for any mistake in this operation. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, a woman makes an announcement beginning to explain Xiao Hu's case, when a poor citizen looks at a flower and says that apparently spring has arrived. Maybe it was because of the warmth, but this year there seem to be more flowers than usual. However, when the wind blows, something is clearly being carried away. The guy is a bit confused, and then we see a giant bee. When it lands on the flower, some petals start to grow on its legs, wings, and even its eye. With that, the bee itself seems to turn into another flower on the flower. The city was calm, everyone relaxed. A friend places a hand on his shoulder and says it's time to go. But the guy is obviously already turning around with something sprouting from his eye. Wow, this one has gone full florist. Already frightened, another person yells that the monster has appeared. However, the other one has also turned into a cluster of petals. This thing is pretty accurate. The petals fly, and a girl places her hands out, saying all of this is too beautiful. Another explosion of flowers. In a second, there's a creature made of a bunch of petals. A half-plant person walking around. A confident fool, all excited, says not to panic, that he'll take care of it. When they draw side characters with that dumb look, we already know the poor guy is going to die. He readies his attack and strikes straight in the middle of the creature, announcing that a monster showing up here was the same as looking for death. However, the venom touches him and his arm also turns into vegetation. The other hunters nearby quickly realize this creature has some kind of radiation. Judging by the green color, it's the return of the great evil spirit. Some soldiers leap over buildings and wonder what's going on. One of them tells Jiang he doesn't think it's the Great Spirit, since the infected people actually become zombies. However, at the same time, the guy could feel that just like the Great Evil Spirit, this energy had the will to contaminate anything. Jiang says that human flowers would be the right description, but creatures affected by this type of transformation were extremely incomprehensible to humanity. They would try to stop this virus from spreading through the city and at the same time had to be careful not to get infected themselves. With that, each one heads off in a different direction. Meanwhile, people are running everywhere, saying the monsters were eating people. Jiang appears and tells everyone to get down. Man, am I the only one who just now noticed that the old guy's missing an arm. He starts gathering some fire energy in his mouth and launches a dragon toward the creatures. The people duck and the power sweeps through the city. Upon seeing the burned plants, people think they are safe. However, the ash touches someone's face and yet another person turns into a plant. The old man is shocked to see that even the ashes were creating infections. Man, this dangerous virus was already taking over half the city. How are they going to stop something like that? Someone called a mask because the buildings are all getting taken over. A guy says that this was a verdant hell. A barrier is protecting some people, and the captain warns everyone not to shoot the creatures. The priority is to evacuate this area since even a single ash particle could infect a human. The guy then asks Jiang what's going on, and Jiang replies that as he can see, a disaster has begun. The bearded man says that without a doubt it's the presence of a great evil spirit and asks how it's returned. Jiang explains that there are few, but some creatures possess immortality. Even if it seems like they're eradicated by humans, the remaining ashes can rebuild the monster. Just like a certain type of jellyfish can revert itself to the stage where it all begins, these creatures do the same. He adds that he knows Arthur might not know about this since it was only recently discovered that some creatures have this trait of immortality. However, of course, if a creature like this were completely obliterated, it would finally cease to exist. Seeing how this creature is affecting the city, he's sure it's some kind of radiation created by the evil spirit of the past, as it resembles the power of those gods. Arthur yells, saying he knew this was wrong and that those guys were a bunch of pests. Jiang asks what he's talking about. Arthur explains that after the first creature's attack, Mass ordered them to remove the radiation from everyone. But as soon as he left the city to save money, some guys ignored some of the victims, and this current situation was likely caused by that decision. The commander replies that they can talk about it later, but first he needs to know how far this thing has spread. After that, they would find the spot where this energy is most concentrated and identify who needs to be eliminated. Arthur asks why he's talking about this, since there's no way he can handle this creature alone. Jiang responds that he can't sense any creature above level 10. Even though the monster is strong, it's still in its infancy, so he needs to kill it before it grows stronger. Arthur hesitates for a second and tells him to be careful not to get contaminated by the radiation. He's going to contact the team now to send the information Jiang requested. Meanwhile, in the city of the wealthy, people are notified that to strengthen the defense line, they will send protection from this area. People hear the news on the train, and a woman receives another alert. It's an emergency announcement about the disaster-level monster that appeared in the city. The area is already completely overtaken. People start seeing posts about Dahai City and say it looks like the end of the world. Some are asking for Mask to appear and save everyone once again, but others comment that he's already given up all his power. People post some pictures, and everyone wants to know why those creatures seem somewhat human, until someone interjects and says they don't just seem human, they are humans who are contaminated. The city's commander heads toward the creature, but he's still alone. The blonde news anchor announces that according to the analysis, the creature is still at level 7. The commander is also level 7, but he's defeated even level 8 creatures before. Then she points to the TV, which shows the entire city overtaken by plants. In one of the images, the commander runs from the vines. People are excited to see how agile he is and that the creatures can't catch him. Suddenly, he stops and people ask if he found something. He looks up and asks if it's her. Obviously, folks, it's Qian Liu with her entire body covered in plants. The commander asks what she's doing and if she created this stage to be worshipped by people. He comments about some creatures intentionally mimicking aspects of human religion. The commander yells at him to focus, saying that despite the creature's appearance as a woman, it's a threat to humanity. He replies that he understands and tells Qian Liu he didn't expect her to turn into something like this in just a few hours. She responds by asking if he regrets it now. He says yes, and electricity starts coursing through the vines. He says he regrets not killing her while she was still in a wheelchair. Well, that's harsh, though not exactly fair. He jumps toward her, striking her head and tearing a piece off. Obviously, with these guys grinning like fools, thinking everything went right, clearly nothing actually went right. Jiang looks to the side and already knows the attack had no effect at all. Her head begins to regenerate. She looks back, telling him that it's all useless. She smiles in his direction, unsettling him with such rapid regeneration. Meanwhile, the guys in the helicopter wonder how they're supposed to defeat a creature like this. The commander, however, doesn't lose hope and says he'll finish her off once and for all. He unleashes a barrage of punches and her body is pierced through. But in the next second, she regenerates again. She asks if the light that shines on darkness can only do so much. He seems to feel something and suddenly tries to retreat. As he falls onto a building, he says he oddly felt an enormous threat. Behind him, however, someone asks if he left faster than he's arriving. He tries to move again, wondering why it feels like she's faster than him. Man, she's really fast. She was already behind him asking the same dark question. She says that at this rate, the people he needs to save would die long before he arrives. Jiang keeps trying to escape through the city while the guys in the helicopter are completely baffled. It's not that she's physically faster than him. She can actually swap places with any plant. Arthur slams the table and tells the commander to come back because he has no chance of defeating her. If they couldn't eliminate Arthur in that place, she wouldn't die, so this fight made no sense. During the fight, Jiang asks the girl if she thought he could escape from that place. He takes off his jacket, places it on the ground, adjusts his metal, and smiles. Qian Liu says she's smart enough to realize he won't be able to escape from there, but he looks like a beast struggling to stay alive. Man, another arm appeared. No wonder I only noticed it then. He really does seem to have two, I think. An energy field appears around Jiang's body as he says that, in fact, this is his second reincarnation. The light rises into the sky, and the boy looks like something out of Dragon Ball. The guys in the helicopter say that pulling so much energy into his body could kill him. Arthur says he's not trying to spin his own life, but to reach a new level by sacrificing everything he has. He yells, asking if the commander is crazy, but the communicator breaks. Kung Liu praises his courage for maximizing his power this way, but now every cell of his is pushed to the limit and he'll certainly pay a high price for it. She smiles and asks if she's wrong. Jiang doesn't answer and leaps toward her. Kung Liu thinks it's pointless and she can instantly disappear. However, he reaches her in half a second and tears half her body away. She's startled to see that he's faster than even her own thoughts. The captain is in immense pain, and that single attack is tearing his body apart from the inside. But the guys are celebrating, saying he's too strong and will manage to kill the monster. However, Arthur knows that the creature wasn't actually hit. The energy fluctuations hadn't disappeared but were only increasing. It was now clear that Commander Jiang stood no chance against that creature. A guy with glasses asks if he's sure. Arthur mentions the giant from a Greek legend named Antaeus, a mythical being who would never be defeated as long as his feet were on the ground. This mutated creature was like a version of that legend. As long as it was in the city overrun by plants, it was impossible to defeat her. Realizing there were thousands of vines there, the team feels utterly hopeless, until one of them gasps and says the energy level was increasing extremely quickly. In the blink of an eye, and had become a level 9 disaster. Dai City had come to its end. Kung Liu says it's unbelievable that a human hunter burned his life away like that. Occasionally, she'd also dreamed of becoming such a powerful fighter that she could destroy everything before her. But even with all that power, he hadn't extinguished the darkness plaguing the city. She doesn't understand why he didn't act to save countless lives that have fallen into darkness. She keeps asking why and why again as plants start to grow. Numerous creatures begin to run toward her, and she seems to be absorbing everything. The barrier outside appears to be starting to break, and a soldier warns that they won't last much longer there. Then the plants glance to the side and start running. The soldiers cheer, thinking they're retreating, but one of them warns that this is far from over. He's covered by a shadow, wondering what it is. All the city's plants are merging into one. Green explosions occur, and little by little, Kung Liu opens her eyes. Man, she's gigantic now, as tall as a building. From one of the rooftops, Jiang asks if she wants to know the reason, and he tells her it's because that's how life works. A red energy appears beside him, and he says that in this cursed life, death has never been uncommon. But the attack he launches at her is easily blocked. Or actually, maybe not so easily after all. Or actually, yeah, easily enough. Man, I'm getting confused. People watching on TV say that the light of victory is piercing the creature. They start cheering, saying it truly is humanity's glory. Maybe now she's really losing since the thing is shredding her arm. But she's too confident, so she already knows this won't work. Jiang, who is piercing her arm, is soon immobilized. Holding him in her hands, Kung Liu says he must die, along with this cursed belief of his about how people should live. Man, he's in agony, but he turns into a bunch of flowers. I didn't think he'd make it out alive, honestly. It was easy for her. Kung Liu even seems disappointed with how easy it was. The department watching all this is devastated, and Arthur announces that the captain's energy had vanished. Man, people in the subway should have been looking at their screens. But I think our dear artist could use a lesson in perspective. The mother tells her daughter not to watch, but the girl says it was beautiful seeing the old man turn into a bunch of flowers. However, the rest of the people already know that this might mean the end of Da City, especially considering that the person who always saved them in these situations has now disappeared. The fools who were all against him now want the boy back, right? In the live chat, people are saying that the federal government will surely send an incredible hunter. It's impossible they won't. Now in the comments, everyone's already saying they shouldn't have done that to Mask. In the prison, they're also announcing the attack and that the city will be evacuated. In one of the rooms, our dear Xiao Q is listening to all this. Back with President He Yao, who slams the table, saying it's a bunch of useless people. The damn fools who always claimed they'd sacrifice themselves for the country are now running from this creature. The people seem to say nothing in response, and he asks if they've forgotten human glory. If no one fights to stop that thing, there's no way this world will continue. One of them then replies that maybe the biggest mistake was what they did to Mask. Hiyao is taken aback and slams the table again, until one of them mentions the nuclear plan, which would be the only way to save Da City. Obviously, the problem is that pollution and radiation would be terrible for that place. Others, in desperation, tell the president that this is surely the best decision at this moment to save humanity. He needn't worry because all the survivors would praise this decision that saved the entire world. Hiyao finds himself in a situation where he can't say no, until one of them reports that it looks like something is heading towards the battlefield. The president wants to know it's a hunter and what they're doing there. The guy explains that it appears to have a human shape, but is actually a monster. The prison had its roof destroyed. Obviously, what passed through there was a creature that left everyone scared. Trembling, the guy only said he escaped. Back in the city, soldiers were still trying to evacuate the area. They already knew Commander Jiang was dead and that the plants were coming back. Desperately, they began fleeing, saying they weren't going to die here for nothing. Others wanted to stay, saying that if they ran, the entire city would be destroyed. As the plants were advancing, he said he would risk everything. He strikes the first one right in the core, but immobilizes the lance, and he's yet another fool who gets devoured. Another one calls out to the squad leader and prepares an attack, saying he'd give it his all too. But that's when something passes by him. A sequence of slashes begins to cut through the vines. He falls to the ground, and the leader helps him up. Terrified, he says they might be saved. Xian Liu is still standing there, and the guys in the helicopter are about to flee. But the cameraman says to wait. He's seeing a reinforcement approaching. Something is crossing the city extremely fast. Everyone gets excited, saying they knew the government wouldn't give up on this city so easily. Others are still complaining that if this reinforcement had arrived, Commander Jiang wouldn't have died. They watch an attack, commenting on the insane strength of this hero. But it's not a hero, folks, it's a monstrous figure. Obviously, our protagonist was motivated, especially because the mission was to finish off this spirit. But even he is confused, as this creature's energy feels very different this time. The last one represented death and decay. However, this monster seems to represent life and vitality. He can sense that there is no sadness, only the will to grow with everyone. This creature didn't make others suffer, but instead made them reborn in a life of joy, albeit in a corrupted way. And that's why he doesn't care what it is. He needs to obtain the core of the evil spirit to face those damned gods of the void, and whatever it takes, he will kill it. Xian Liu closes her eyes and says it's terrible to live in this polluted world, so everyone should join her. They would be blessed with a world free from sadness, pain, and suffering. She now feels that she's no longer just herself, but connected to all those flowers. Anyone who assimilates with all this becomes something wonderful, regardless of their past status. Then she smiles, saying that soon more people suffering would join them and free themselves from this world. But she notices part of her consciousness is disappearing. She quickly wonders what's happening in the south, causing so many to vanish. She wants to know who the damn person causing all this is, and looking around, she sees our dear monster approaching. Xiao Qiu recognizes her and says he never imagined it would be her. He keeps slashing and begins climbing the vines. Xian Liu doesn't understand why he hasn't assimilated or why he lacks human energy. His blade is already on her arm as she comes in with a deadly mosquito slap. However, he throws himself towards her hand and slices through it as well. All in Captain Levi style from Attack on Titan, he continues climbing. But then she starts summoning creatures directly from her shoulder that head towards him. She prepares a green laser that explodes in front of him. Others begin appearing from behind, also exploding. However, he manages to be faster than the explosions and slowly dodges them. The people in the helicopter are excited, saying he's fast enough, and maybe they actually have a chance. Meanwhile, the hunters were watching the fight. They started to suspect that it was impossible for a monster to have so much battle intuition, so maybe it was a hunter in the appearance of one. It was clear how he risked himself by mere millimeters as he got close to each explosion. To act at that level, someone not only needed to be fast, but to have a deep understanding of battle. The reason humans often defeated creatures was because they were much more intelligent. However, this humanoid creature was using techniques like a level 9 hunter. It could only be a human with the appearance of a monster. Because if this really were a monster, it would be impossible for humanity to survive. Our guy was already close to Xian Liu's face. Wings appeared on his back and he launched himself into the attack. Xian Liu was shocked as he went for the strike. But those humans just criticize and wonder why he didn't just fly out instead of dodging everything. However, another person smiled, saying that this was actually the great element of surprise and she would never see it coming. He goes in for the attack and sends out a blood slash. Man, he hit her head squarely. The cameraman cheers, saying that finally someone managed to slice her head off. The creatures running on the ground suddenly freeze. Excitedly, the guy says that them stopping might represent victory. But they look at each other, repeatedly asking who he is. Her head starts to regenerate as Xian Liu asks once again who he is and why the flying crow sword is in his hands. Xiao Qiu says nothing in response. She says that seeing he's also a monster, they don't need to fight. He should just connect his power to everyone around them. Together, it could change all the corruption that plagues this dark world. She reveals the core of the demonic spirit to him, something that could only be used with the approval of the Great Spirit. Xiao Hu is confused since she's offering him the quest reward directly. The girl asks if, like her, he doesn't want to destroy all the filth of this world. Even if they have to search every mountain or the bottom of the sea, they would eliminate and destroy everything evil in this place. And if the darkness never ends, they would eliminate the whole world. And that's why she wants him to join her in building a new place for everyone. The volume of her voice alone makes the helicopter shake. Meanwhile, the cameraman is very worried, as it seems the monsters know each other. Xiao Ku, god of few words, still says nothing and stands there flying. But for him, the idea of protecting humans or working with monsters isn't something he's interested in. The only thing he wants to do is kill all the monsters, even if, in the process, he himself becomes one. He's willing to let the system do whatever it wants with him as long as it grants him more power. Xian Liu closes her eyes and says that if he's there and not speaking, it's because he wants to kill her. So it will be a race to see if he kills her before she destroys this world. Her head bursts once again and is thrown far away. She sends out vines that capture him in midair, pulling him close. Man, she's coming in for the big bite. He deactivates his wings and activates his claws to break free. But he's already about to be bitten. Whoa, man, he almost went straight to the digestive system. Or maybe not, because he came out right at the back of her neck. Xiao Tu says that in his past life he had killed hundreds of giant monsters. He knows the reason they don't die is because the true body needs to be found. If it's not in the middle of the head, then it must be somewhere else. Exactly where you're thinking, man. Right in the middle of the back, obviously, right? Don't tell me you thought of anything else. Please don't. It launches a series of attacks. The vines begin to regenerate and green explosions go off everywhere. And he doesn't stop, man. Slashes here and explosions there. The mask is cracking. What's going on? How many frames will this have? He slashes here and there. The blue core starts to appear. Staying the energy, he knows he's finally found what he needed. His attack pierces through, and he finds the true body. She turns her back and takes the hit squarely. Whoa, I thought there would be a plot twist, but he really stabbed her. She says she never expected he'd make it this far. Shou pulls out the blade, but he's unfortunately completely out of energy. He was about to fall, but she catches him with a vine. She stares at him and asks what she's going to do. She realizes he seems more attractive than Mask. What's going on here, man? He's a little confused, and she smiles, telling him not to worry. She's already dead, but she's using the last of her energy to heal him. However, her gigantic body is still standing there. The poor cameraman is sure they've lost. Suddenly, the entire helicopter begins to shake, and the whole city trembles. Everyone's lying on the ground, confused. The sky opens, and something passes through the clouds. Man, the guy in the helicopter is a genius, immediately recognizing a nuclear bomb. Apparently, the high-ranking officials had decided to vaporize the city. At the same time, Hiyao wonders what he has done. Looking up at the sky, Chun Liu says they truly had no heart. Not only were the two of them considered monsters, but the entire city was being sacrificed. But before dying, she was going to make sure everyone saw who the bastards from the Federation were that took down Mask. She re-enters her own body, which begins to close up. With this, it starts to stretch upwards. The plants on the ground rush toward her and begin reconnecting. She continues rising towards the sky, stretching her arms. A gigantic tree begins to form as the bomb approaches. Man, I thought the tree was huge until I saw its scale compared to the city. The explosion happens at the top of the tree, illuminating the entire sky. Obviously, all the plants were incinerated. Some tendrils move toward Xiao Hu, forming a cocoon around him. Then the explosion sweeps through the entire city. I don't know if that tree managed to protect much, though. The whole place is shaking and things are being thrown everywhere. At least the barrier is holding. Finally, it seems the explosion subsides and someone wonders if it worked. Looking up, all they can see is the trunk surrounded by smoke. But most of the tree has been obliterated. At the base, they say that much of the energy has dissipated, and Arthur is surprised to hear that the creature has been eliminated. He celebrates, telling Commander Jiang that Das City has been saved, while the poor man's jacket is just floating there with its medals. People are confused, especially since they saw the creature defend the entire city. A man points upward and tells them to look. The tree appears to be splitting in half. It begins to break apart, turning into a mass of petals that drift over the city. A little girl says it's very beautiful. Her father tells her to be careful or she'll turn into a mutation too. But of course now there's no Qian Liu left to create any more mutations. Behind a rock somewhere else, our boy is holding her body. She opens her eyes and says she never realized how beautiful spring was. But friends, she's on her way to the next life as she fades in Xiao Ku's arms. At least his mission is complete and he will receive the reward. The core of the evil spirit appears in his hands. The item, called the Heart of Great Obscenity, is also Qian Liu's heart. He immediately tells the system to equip the item. At least he's not wasting time, man. He gets right to it. Digital blows appear around his body and he tells it to send him out. With that, he disappears from the scene. With the end of the calamity that was about to befall Da, everyone celebrates. However, as they cheer, "Long live humanity," something bizarre is happening. The humanoid flowers are turning back into humans. The crowd falls silent, watching this happen before their eyes. Soon, everyone begins to realize the truth. The bomb that was sent would only kill a bunch of transformed people. Online, people start discussing how many millions were sacrificed just because they didn't deal with that monster. Or worse yet, they ask why the bomb was sent if the creatures had all stopped moving when it arrived. Another person comments that all of this is because they got rid of Mask, who would have wiped out this problem from the start. In an instant, public opinion is changing completely. However, just like in some countries I've heard about, censorship is strong and the tweets are all being deleted. Public opinion vanishes without a trace. Back at a meeting in the main city, a man tells the president that no matter how much they try to control opinion, it's impossible to hide everything that happened. Poor Guiyao once again finds himself in trouble and doesn't know what to do. The guys who work with him are eager to take his position, hoping to snatch the presidency. A man with glasses calls for Walter and says that since everyone is talking about Mask, the solution becomes quite simple. Everyone here agreed to use a nuclear weapon to solve that problem. However, the truth is, it's impossible that Mask isn't somewhat responsible for it. One of the men asks how Mask could be related given that they have no evidence. The man with glasses tells him to think for a second. that if Mask had been present, this whole thing could have been avoided. He opens his arms and says that Mask received all of humanity's generosity, and yet now he doesn't help them. Considering the investment of resources, it's natural to think that this disaster is still his responsibility. If he shows up, it's his fault. If he doesn't, it's his fault. Everyone in the meeting falls silent, probably thinking how insane this guy is. Sometime later, the room is empty, with only the blonde man and the crazy one left. The latter turns to the president, assuring him that he'll take care of every last detail. He got looking quite relaxed, says he's not worried at all. What frustrates him is why all of this happened, given that humanity lacks sufficient firepower. When they had a powerful pawn like Mask, representing a quarter of all human strength, this wouldn't have been a problem. He then asked about the preparations for the Son of Tomorrow project. The man replies that since experiment 268, the plan has been progressing very well. Some bodies have even started living longer. Obviously, the only issue is that they still enter a state of collapse. But that's enough to prove that the fusion of monsters and humans is possible. He slams the papers on the table, saying that if Mask was the one who prevented extinction, they would be the ones to take humanity to a new level. If they managed to assimilate the strength of the monsters, humanity would become gods. The front lines of the monster battles stretch across thousands of kilometers of land. In theory, it should take thousands of years for the continents to reach each other. However, due to the appearance of monsters and incomprehensible phenomena, all the continents are now part of a single landmass. Before Mask began clearing the front lines, it was impossible to see a single human through the secret realms. Not only were cities overrun by creatures, but they were also constantly under attack. The most unreachable place of all was called the Cradle of Calamity. Only with Mask's instincts were they finally able to reclaim that piece of land. The scene shifts to a forest where 4 army guys are standing in front of a portal. The bald one asks who's going to explain this to Captain Jang afterward. The other guy says it's better if he does it since he's known him longer, but the bald guy says he's terrible with words. However, something begins to emerge and they all grow tense, saying she's coming. Someone steps outside. Man, the suspense in this reveal has me nervous. Lauren is sweating anxiously, saying that the queen believes she could finish off that dungeon in half an hour. The girl shows up all swagged out and he says she's truly a genius. Man, she's got a dangerous look. She asks why they have such weird expressions. Oh, her name is Captain Jiang Ling, so she probably had a connection to the late commander. They mention the calamity that appeared in Dak, and she asks if it's been dealt with. After hesitating a bit, the guy shouts that her father, Commander Jiang, sacrificed himself in the battle. What he did was magnificent, as it protected the entire city, and she can see the comments online. Man, she's a total Thomas Shelby and cold strategist. She simply notes it down and is already heading to the next realm. Doesn't even react. The guys are even a bit confused, though they're certain she'll cry when she's alone, or maybe not. Walking through the forest, they wonder if she's really okay. One of them says it's no wonder her name is Icebound. The girl turns and says that if they have so much time to chat, they can head back to the camp. On the front lines, portals form much faster than anywhere else. If no one enters to clear them, eventually creatures start to appear. The commander is already heading into another one and a guy asks if she wants him to go with her this time. After all, they're not participating in anything with her. They're just a bunch of cheerleaders. But he only asks if he really thinks something that simple would stop her. The poor guy feels embarrassed and says there's no way something like that would happen. With that, she steps toward the portal and disappears. The guys comment that she has the same intimidating aura as a high-level monster. Only someone with such unbreakable has a chance to change humanity's destiny. The dark-haired one says he thinks the captain has fewer emotions than the monsters themselves. Inside the cave, she walks beside a lake. She activates electricity on her lance as she moves forward, but then she's startled. The Murloc fishmen had all been cut down. She wonders which team did this, but can already imagine the protagonist behind it. Like those others before, she examines the wounds and realizes it's the work of a single weapon. She can't believe there's someone else who enters this secret realm alone, just like her. It's then that she senses something and a presence passes by her. Immediately, she activates her power, focusing, and it's a Murloc Sharkman. Man, I thought the attack was on her, but it was our boy dodging with ease. She's impressed that someone with such a low level has that much skill. The guy has fatal injuries and any other normal person would have died against those 3 beasts a long time ago. But even alone, he's managing to fight skillfully. She activates her lance, vanishes, and lunges at the 3 beasts. She pierces the first one, while the other 2 surround her. She strikes the next one's neck, and with a flash of light to the head, she slices it cleanly. In a second, the 3 fools fall to the ground. She then turns to the peculiar boy and asks his name and why he's in this secret realm alone. However, she seems to notice something. Like Rock Lee, he's standing but not conscious, and he collapses to the ground. He's out cold, man. That injury on his face really shows that the fight with Hien Liu wasn't easy. This ruthless captain says she thought he was decent, but looks like he'll just be another burden. The little sharks are all trying to leave the water, and here comes a new group of buffed-up creatures. She gets angry, saying this is going to be a hassle. She readies her lance and calls out the monsters. Remembering her father, she says all these damn things deserve to die. Electricity illuminates the entire cave while the guys outside are watching. The bald one comments that she should have been out already since this realm didn't require that much skill. They also talk about what happened in the city and how brave Commander Jiang was. That's when the portal starts to ripple, and they tell each other to stay quiet. Man, she came out carrying our boy. This kid really has a knack for getting involved with the government. The guys ask who he is and if he's some kind of monster. But the scene shifts to a camp on the front lines. There are many camps like this nowadays, and in each of them, at least a quarter of the population is connected to the war. Although the Awakened have mostly assimilated into normal life, there still aren't enough healers. That's why healing work is still done by regular doctors. The doctor says that the injuries this guy has would be fatal, even for a professional, yet he seems to have a sort of healing power that's helping him recover in a way the doctor has never seen before. And who would have thought our girl has an arm like Remendino's? The doctor explains that the boy's injuries are related to radiation, but with his healing ability, he'll soon be back on his feet. Then a blonde man appears, saying there's no need to keep him in the hospital. This is the Supreme Commander of Camp Number 3, known as Liang Zhengyi. John calls him Professor. The scene then shifts to Camp Number 3, where our boy is in the infirmary. On TV, everyone is talking about the disaster that occurred that day, showing images of the soldiers who gave their lives to save the city. Zhengyi comments that the commander died unnecessarily. However, our dear Jiang, whose full name I don't know yet, says nothing. The man continues, saying that for people like them, dying in battle is like coming home. Both of them would have made the same choice as the commander in that situation, so there's no reason to dwell on it. He tells her not to hate herself over it and begins to leave the room. But before going, he tells her to gather some information about the guy sleeping there, since that sword beside him is very intriguing. Man, this sword gives him away wherever he goes. She asks what's so different about the sword and if the professor knows the boy's identity. But being all mysterious, he leaves without answering. She stays there, thoughtful, knowing that for now, all she can do is wait for him to wake up. Oh, he's awake. Not much time passed at all. He's immediately startled to see her standing there. She stares back and grabs her lance. For the first time, she feels threatened by someone. But our boy stays calm and asks her to remove the IV. She asks if he's not curious about where he is. He only asks which military camp it is, and she replies, Number 3. He asks if she was the one who brought him from the secret realm. She says yes and introduces herself as Jiang Ling. Oh, so you're Miss Ling, he replies, introducing himself as Xiao Q, and they both fall silent, staring at each other. On TV, people are starting to say that Mask's disappearance is a clear sign of irresponsibility. A calamity like this happens and he doesn't show up even after receiving so many resources from humanity. Ling seems amused, saying that the anxiety they're showing makes it clear that someone's in trouble. For her, it's surreal how competent Mask was, since when he was around there was no problem or threat, and when he's not, they just claim everything is his responsibility. She then tells our boy that although she doesn't know his identity, he's safe here as long as he doesn't do anything against the camp. Otherwise, she'd be forced to break a few of his bones. Boldly, he says she wouldn't be able to do that, leaving her confused. He repeats that she couldn't break his bones because she wouldn't be able to beat him. She grits her teeth but says fine, and she'll just move up the date for when she gets to fight him. Then she says she can't stay there anymore since she has to go clear the next secret realm. I'm still impressed when I see that combination of biceps and a slender frame. As soon as she leaves the room, the guys ask why the commander wanted to bring this man to this place. They keep asking which team he's from and why he was alone in that secret realm. The bald guy wants to know his name, and she just says, Xiao Ku. The guys say the name sounds familiar, like they might have seen it on TV, but they can tell that the captain seems unusually irritated today. Just then, our boy steps out of the room, and they take a look at him. They ask if he's okay and where he's going. He replies that he's heading to a secret realm, and the guys ask if he's lost his mind. Xiao Ku's heart is beginning to assimilate with the core he consumed, and now he feels his body demanding the life force of others. He needs to kill monsters to absorb their vital power and start healing his wounds. One guy tells him to wait, saying he can't enter a secret realm without a team. But another voice tells them to let him go, as one less secret realm benefits everyone. It's the Supreme Commander who steps in front of everyone. He always has that smug look like he just passed gas. One of the guys says the boy can't break the rules, but the commander just says that rules are meant to serve people, not the other way around. As the Supreme Commander of this camp, he gives this order and asks if anyone disagrees. Of course, the guys are spineless and immediately say, no, sir. He then looks at our boy again with that smug expression. The chief orders half of the group to accompany the boy and the other half to go with Jiang Ling. Now she's all geared up in her swag, ready for action. The guys approach and say they've finally found her. She asks where the others are, and they explain that the boy already went to another realm, and the commander sent 2 along with him. She's shocked that he's crazy enough to go straight into a secret realm as soon as he woke up. The guy responds that he's definitely arrogant, while Ling stays silent. She tells them not to worry, maybe he has his own reasons. From afar, someone asks if the guy is really that strong. Meanwhile, with Xiao Ku's team, the guys are talking about a bunch of wars and the commander's sacrifice, asking if he's strong. So much chatter. The king, a few words, only says he has no connection to any of it. The blonde guy with a beard says he thought he somehow knew the Supreme Commander. Xiao Q asks why he's the so-called Supreme Commander, and the guy says he's a living legend. Man, now things are serious. The guy explains that the commander seems blind but has better vision than anyone. That explains why he always has that smug look. Well, I take it all back. The guy really is blind. He detects monsters through sound and smell. I was wrong, but they trolled me too. They could have done a Huba-style thing with blank eyes to help me figure it out. The blonde guy explains that the Supreme Commander fought side by side with Mask when the front lines were established. They were part of what was known as the front line of creature repulsion. Xiao Fu remembers the name and wonders how long it's been since he did that. Back then, no one had a good impression of him, yet he led 3,000 people to reclaim territory stolen by monsters. It had been ages since a human had set foot there, and that place was uninhabited. The land, sky, underground, and waters were full of countless creatures attacking from every direction. They went from 3,000 people to 2,500 to 2,000 until only 1,000 were left. But they reclaimed that land and proved humanity that they could walk on it again. Those who participated in these incursions became the world's most powerful fighters, and with this new strength, humanity claimed new territories from monsters and began to be reborn. Now standing in front of the portal, the guys say they don't know his identity, which is why they're coming along. They wanted to help, but Xiao Fu questions what they're talking about. He tells them it won't be necessary since he's fine on his own. Man, these poor guys really are just chauffeurs going back and forth. Once inside, he takes a deep breath, feeling relaxed. For him, there's no better smell than that of the secret realm full of monsters because that's where he loses control and starts killing everything. The first creatures to appear are the antenna wolves, and Xiao Qiu calmly approaches them. He says that 3 minutes is the maximum time he can maintain his monster form since his body is far from fully recovered. But that's more than enough. He disappears in a blur and slices through all the creatures. As usual, the little critters are all sliced up and fall lifeless to the ground. They dissolve, turning into life energy fragments and begin flowing toward him. Now, with the heart of obscenity he absorbed, he can extract life from any creature, and the best part is that this extracted life starts to heal his body. Outside, the guys wonder when they should go in to check if he's okay. Another guy replies that he'll be a while since he's probably just wandering around the forest, avoiding monsters. The bald guy says he's sure the poor kid must be dying to come back and ask for help. That's when he steps out of the portal. The blonde guy is startled, not because he thinks Xiao Hu won, but because he's impressed that he managed to escape. However, the bald guy asks an important question. Did he take down the boss? Xiao Hu replies yes, though he's a bit confused as it was so easy that he's not sure if it was really the boss. He grabs some items and says that this is what was on the strongest creature and should be enough to make some arrows. The guys tell him it took 17 minutes, which means he was faster than Captain Jiang. The bald one says her record was 30 minutes, so he nearly did it in half the time. Startled, the blonde guy says that arbitrarily speaking, he'd be at least twice as strong as Ling, and Xiao Fu just walks away, saying it's time to head to the next realm. In the next scene, he's already leaving, saying he's off to the next one. Again and again. Sometime later, someone spots a footprint on the ground and says someone else has already cleared this portal. The guy next to him says the footprints seem fresh, so it must have been the same group as before. The other asks if this is the 4th or 5th gate already. The guy wonders if it might be Xiao Fu, who's gone all hunting again. But he says it's impossible for a group like that to clear them so quickly. Surely the real possibility is a team from another military camp coming to steal the resources from this place. Ling, however, just says that's good since they have people to help, and it's time to go back. But in truth, she's angry, wanting to know who had the audacity to do this. When a team returned to the camp, they had to register what they'd received. Depending on what they brought back, they could request various rewards and even one-on-one lessons with the Supreme Commander. When she arrives, she sees our boy with the guy at the counter asking if he really cleared 17 secret realms. The bald guy shows the sheet, saying to check it. These areas' energy had disappeared. The guy admits they do seem to be finished, but finds it hard to believe it was only them. The bald guy throws a bag full of items onto the table, asking if that proves anything. Embarrassed, the guy with glasses says it's not that he suspected them, it's just strange that someone could clear so many secret realms in a single day. The bald guy, now a fan, says Xiao Ku was recommended by the Supreme Commander himself. The guy hands over the sheet for a secret realm near Camp Number 1, saying the 2 teams had already died trying to go there. Since they were so strong, maybe they could handle it. Xiao Ku takes the sheet and says he accepts the request. The bald guy can't stop praising him, saying he's even stronger than Jiang Ling. Of course, the guy at the counter coughs and tells him to take a look behind him. Man, he better run. She's got those strong arms. The bald guy, feeling awkward, says he's just saying this stuff to keep Xiao Ku motivated. Then another guy grabs the sheet and points out that the areas listed are exactly where they went and found nothing. Jiang Ling asks Xiao Qiu if it was him, and he confirms it. She says now she understands why he was so confident even when he was unconscious in bed. Our boy is starting to wonder why it seems this woman has something against him. She then says she heard about the request for this dangerous place and also wants to accept the challenge. She wants to see which of them can kill the boss first. With that, her group leaves. The bald guy congratulates Xiao Qiu, saying he revived the captain's competitive spirit. Xiao Qiu looks at the sheet and says he now understands why the system wanted him to come here. He has vivid memories of the incident that happened around this time in his past life. He's silent, and the blonde guy seems to notice something, that face and that blade. He finally knows where he's seen someone like him before. The scene shifts to the main office of base number 3. The blonde guy tells the commander that it's exactly as he heard. The commander responds that it's unlikely a convicted killer from Das City would be in that place. However, the blonde guy insists, saying he observed him all day and is sure that his fighting style matches that of the condemned assassin. He has no idea how the guy ended up there, but he's certain it's the person they've been looking for. The chief responds that he understands and will observe how he acts alongside Miss Jiang tomorrow. For some strange reason, the blonde guy wants our boy to be guilty. This way he can report him and come out as the one who protected the base. But honestly, I think they wouldn't make it out alive. Sometime later, the scene shifts to the front of the portal. Everyone is begging Jiang Ling to let them go with her since it's so dangerous this time. She knows they're worried since 2 teams have disappeared there, but as always, just like our boy, she ignores them and starts walking. Or not. Look at how humble she is. She looked back and told them to follow, but she warned them that the competition was between her and Xiao Qiu, so no one should interfere. The blonde guy with the beard is there, confused since the commander said he'd show up, but he hasn't arrived yet. It's a shame, but he can't wait as he also has to observe this. The group finds themselves in front of a massive tunnel. One of the guys raises his hand, noting that the temperature is normal, the humidity is stable, and there's nothing toxic in the air. But they quickly realize the place feels strangely cramped. If they got surrounded by creatures here, they wouldn't stand a chance to escape. A breeze then comes from the end of the tunnel, and everyone stares. The loudmouth mentions something, and now the creatures are coming. People start questioning why it feels like there are so many eyes coming toward them. Emerging from the shadows is a pile of crocodiles stacked on top of each other. Jiang Ling steps forward and readies her lance. The crocodiles charge, but she simply extends her arm and activates a lightning spell. An electric laser shoots forward, filling the tunnel with smoke. Once it clears, the tunnel is clean. The bald guy is impressed, saying that with one attack, she wiped out everything they were afraid of. She tells them to hurry up, and the bald guy tells our boy to be careful because this time the captain isn't holding back. But Xiao Fu doesn't even know why he's competing this way, finding it all rather foolish. They continue down the tunnel, and after a while, someone comments that they've been walking for 10 minutes without seeing anything. Then Jiang Ling stops once more. She says they passed the region where the 2 teams lost contact. However, they still haven't found any bodies in this place. A guy suggests that if they lost to those crocodiles, they might have been devoured or perhaps wiped out by an attack like hers that left nothing behind. Then someone asks if they heard that. He's pressing his ear to the wall, and people ask if he's gone mad. But here comes something else. The tunnel starts shaking and a gust of wind blows. This time, what appears is a massive alligator 2.0 running toward them, so big that it barely fits in the tunnel. Jiang Ling wonders why they seem so scared. Maybe that monster has some innate ability that creates intimidation. Too bad for it, though, because a pathetic trick like that isn't going to work on her. Meanwhile, Xiao Qiu is just preparing his sword. He strikes the ground, and that's the end of the chapter. Man, don't do this to me. Jiang Ling's attack goes straight for the big mouth. She pierces through, looking back as our boy plants his sword in the ground. He keeps pressing into the floor and pulls the sword out. Suddenly, the ground beneath the alligator starts to shake, and it falls dead. He briefly thinks it's a shame, as if he were alone, he'd be absorbing these creatures. Wait a minute, I just realized. He killed the one below, and she killed the one above. So there were 2? I'm just as stunned as those guys who fell backward in disbelief that there was one underground too. Jiang Ling then asks him how he knew there was a creature below if none of them felt any tremors, but she realizes she was too focused on the one in front. If not for Xiao Hu's presence, her subordinates might have been attacked. Xiao Hu replies that there was a slight tremor. In this type of dungeon with no exit, it's common for creatures to approach from below. The guy with his ear against the wall says it's insane that he heard something since even when focusing, he couldn't hear anything. For Xiao Qiu, though, was easy. After all, when he fought against the gods of the void, he had to know where the creatures would teleport, which was much harder. The big bald guy opens his arms, saying it's amazing how skilled both of them are. However, Jiang Ling tells him to calm down because that wasn't the boss yet. If it were, the treasure would have appeared, but nothing happened. Now the guys are scared, wondering what kind of creature would appear in this realm if those weren't the boss. Standing atop the monster, she tells them to be extremely cautious since they could die at any moment. The guys apologize for getting in the way again, but she tells them it doesn't matter. They're a team. Okay, folks, it doesn't look like a very united team, but it's fine. The guys get all fired up, eager to prove themselves. After following the tunnel for a while, they come upon a steel gate. Everyone comments that it looks like the boss is right behind it. Jiang Ling tells them it's best if they stay outside and only she and Xiao Qiu go in. Once they're gone, they wait for them to return safely. With that, each one turns a handle on either side, and the door slowly opens as they step in. In the smoke, they vanish, and the door closes behind them. They walk calmly through the tunnel until a green paw steps onto the ground. Ling remarks that this bizarre creature seems to be Leviton, not a large creature. A bipedal crocodile stares them down. Everyone knows that the more human-like a monster is, the stronger it tends to be, as they're usually far more intelligent. The creature starts roaring, and Jiang Ling comments that it's clearly preparing an attack, so she's not going to give it a chance. She jumps above it, saying there's no way they're going to let it get ready like that. Xiao Fu observes that her attack is a bit faster than the speed of sound. At this rate, she'll defeat it alone. However, the monster easily catches her lance. She's shocked and gets a nasty chiropractic adjustment in the process. Looks like our boy is going to have to save the day, but not before she pulls a pistol out of her pocket to shoot it in the head. With a purple glow on the weapon, a laser pierces the monster's head. Man, I thought that wouldn't do it, but it seems the big guy is dead. I guess that wasn't the boss. Xiao Fu approaches, telling her that she took too much of a risk and asking if she always fights like that. She replies that the more you risk, the more you gain. Our boy says he agrees, and she realizes he's just as crazy for agreeing with such nonsense. Then she looks over and notices that inside the crocodile there appears to be a person. She recognizes him as someone named Christian. Xiao Fu asks if she knows him, and she responds that this guy was part of one of the two teams that disappeared in this place. Something about this secret realm is very strange. That's when a bunch of blue crocodiles appear. You can already guess that there's probably a bunch of people inside these creatures. The crocodiles start roaring, and the two charge forward. Jiang uses the same slash with her lance, striking the ground and shaking everything. She then follows up with a slash that's even stronger, slicing 4 of them in half. One takes advantage and tries to come at her from behind. I thought our boy would save her, but she's strong enough to defend herself, spinning her lance and striking it in the chest. That little lance of hers is incredibly lethal. She's blowing these creatures apart. She comments that these people who appear to have turned into monsters have gained a lot of agility, but they're no longer intelligent. Then she remembers Xiao Hu is with her, and looking to the side, sees him easily slicing off one's head. Another one appears behind him, but he just ducks and strikes it in the chest, glancing back and cutting it into sashimi. With that, the poor creatures are all divided. Jiang comments that all these creatures really were the hunters who disappeared in the dungeon. She couldn't understand what was going on. Behind the last 3 giant pillars are visible. They turn to look and seem to start worshipping them. She quickly notices that it looks like some sort of altar and wonders what they were trying to summon. The pillars turn red and she seems alarmed. The little energy emanating from them was already making her feel out of breath. She throws her lance, knowing she can't let them continue the ritual. Like a Spartan, she skewers the 2 of them. However, 2 red eyes by the altar keep staring. But once the worship ends, they start to disappear. She wonders what they were trying to summon and what those eyes were. Xiao Chu knows those eyes belong to the gods of the void, who were now watching him. After all, they are old acquaintances. A while later, they finally leave the dungeon. The group comments that they knew they'd succeed and asks how strong the bosses were. She replies that she'll explain everything later because there's something extremely important she needs to report to the commander. The group seems unsure of what to say, until someone points out that it won't be necessary because he's right there. When everyone looks, it's the commander. Whoa, he arrived with an army. For what? One of them asks the same question I'm thinking. The commander tells her not to worry. It's not about her. He turns to Xiao Hu and says that on the other hand, he might want to start worrying as they already know he's the murderer responsible for the massacre in Da City. The whole group focuses on Xiao Hu, wondering if it's true and why someone from such a distant city is there in the first place. The blonde guy says there's no reason to doubt it. He's reviewed his profile countless times and is sure this is the person. Jiang Ling seems to be getting angry, and Xiao Hu simply responds that it's true. He's exactly who they think he is. The blonde guy gets excited, saying he knew he was onto the right trail. Xiao Hu asks if he'll be arrested and sent to Star City. The commander explains that according to the law, it doesn't matter where a fugitive is found. It must be sent to the front lines. However, there's a small detail. He's being pursued under federal law, not military law, so it has nothing to do with them. The soldiers are probably wondering why they were brought there. Then, the commander says he investigated the whole case and believes what Xiao Hu did was the right thing. If he were in the same situation, he might have gone even further. He believes that if all people were upstanding citizens like Xiao Hu, the new generation would truly save this world. He then announces that's all for today and doesn't want anyone in Military City number 3 talking about this again. Anyone who breaks this rule will be removed from the base. Everyone remains silent until Jiang Ling says she wants to discuss something with him. The group wonders what they must have seen in the dungeon to be so apprehensive. The bald guy is curious too, but he's now terrified of Xiao Hu after finding out he's an assassin. During their conversation, Jiang Ling asks the commander if he has any idea who those monsters were worshipping. He reveals that it was likely the gods of the void. Jiang Ling is confused as she's never known that something above the creatures even existed. He then explains that there are countless teams like hers on the front lines to why, with so many people, haven't they been able to exterminate the front lines? He reveals that the real problem is the source of it all. Until they eliminate what's summoning these creatures, they'll keep facing endless secret realms. She then asks why they don't just eliminate the source and put an end to it. He says it's because killing a god of the void or a monster god is extremely difficult. Probably the presence she saw on the altar was one of these beings. He explains that these creatures hide all around the planet and are just beyond the countless portals. They become unreachable since even a single breath from one of these beings is enough to create countless secret realms. Jang is puzzled that such a creature could exist with a power level even higher than a disaster-level creature. The commander then tells her to stay calm. It's not as if they're sheep waiting to be slaughtered. Humanity has defeated many of these gods, or at least it can be said that one human has killed some. Jang isn't stupid. She realizes he's talking about Mask. However, he then explains that the appearance of these creatures on the altar could signal a new monster storm coming. Such an event is known as a creature wave and has always brought humanity to the brink of extinction. Jang is terrified because even in the days when they had Mask, a monster wave was already extremely dangerous. Now that he's stepped down, the chances of humanity surviving have drastically decreased. The leader then begins to leave, telling her not to enter any secret realms for the time being, that they'll assess the situation. The commander advises her to take a break because if she keeps fighting like a robot, she'll lose her humanity. She starts to say something, but he just ignores her, telling her that she and Xiao Hu will deliver some letters. Now that Xiao Hu's identity has been exposed, he suggests it would be best for him to start hiding his face. He tells her to prepare a mask for him. Imagine if she takes inspiration from the past mask and gives him an old-style one. What a coincidence that would be. The scene shifts to a desert with a train moving across it. Inside, the team is relaxing. Man, they brought back that incredible mask design. It's really a fantastic look. Kudos to the team involved. The bald guy asks how Xiao Hu feels about riding in the frontline exclusive vehicle known as the armored train. It may be a little uncomfortable and not the fastest, but it's certainly the most resilient on these lands. One guy tells him to stop giving the same speech every time a new person joins. Another asks why they have to go in person to deliver such important information. The bald guy only replies that it must be highly classified, so they shouldn't let anyone know about it. Just then, they hear a noise outside. Someone climbs the stairs and sees a car following them. What's this? The guy immediately pulls out a gun, ready to shoot without even knowing if the person's an enemy. The guy with black hair comments that they're in M2 territory, and it looks like those guys haven't been working enough, given that creatures are now escaping the secret realm. Humanity was almost wiped out once when, instead of entering realms, they waited for the creatures to emerge from them. The people in the car keep accelerating until one of them pulls out a bow and starts firing. That clears things up. I was confused about why he was shooting arrows until I realized he was aiming at the wolves behind them. They could have shown the wolves earlier to avoid confusing me. The archer says he's already killed over 30 of these creatures, yet they keep coming. The problem now is that he's out of arrows. Instead of moving away, he stays there, trying to find a non-existent arrow. Naturally, a huge wolf comes in for a bite, but a fire bullet slices through the air, exploding the beast midair. The people in the car cheer, realizing reinforcements have arrived. At least they're next to the armored train. How did they miss spotting a giant train beside them? Anyway, the folks on the train continue firing. They even puncture the poor car's tire. Things get chaotic as it skids. Suddenly, a gigantic harpy swoops down in front of them, but it doesn't last long and is killed almost immediately. The car overturns, the creature is dead, and the poor souls are crawling out. Only then do they realize they weren't under attack. They were being saved. The train keeps approaching and the protagonist group starts moving toward the men. The soldiers turn and tell them to run away, saying there's no way they can win against all that. However, their expressions soon change, don't they? Upon seeing Jang and our guide cutting through everything with ease, they realize they had no idea this group that had just arrived was so strong. For the first time, I'm seeing Jang's friends doing something and I don't even know how to judge it. She slashes a few more wolves, and our guy really is going to keep wearing that awful mask, for heaven's sake. He's just standing there with a dumb look on his face, and a little while later, the wolves were all dead. Jiang Ling says she'll clean up the battlefield and tells them to take the injured to the train. The people just say they understand, staring at a bunch of slash wolves. They then approach and ask if they're from the military team of City Number 3. The guy here already wants to know how they figure out they were from there. Man, the guy says he'd already heard of the team with a girl wielding a spear and another wearing a mask. News in this world is spreading really fast. The boy just put that mask on his face. What's up with that? Now the crazy one looks at our guy and says he's never heard of this one before. So who do you think was wearing the mask, you damned idiot? The black-haired guy in the group isn't quite sure how to introduce himself. The bald guy just interrupts and says his name is Xiao Q, a new, pretty strong member. The one with a scar on his face says he hadn't heard that name before. However, it seems he's going to be as famous as the leader. The group then asks what happened, that they're being chased by so many monsters. They explain that they were exploring a secret realm when suddenly, an unusual number of monsters appeared. It thinks it's the fault of the office people who don't notify them about things in time. The seal on that place had already been broken for a while, but no one had noticed. Jiang asks what's going on with all these realm seals breaking. The guy explains that strangely, many realms are appearing at their base, so they can't keep up with them all. The plan was to try to manage for a while, but it clearly isn't working out very well. Jiang Ling starts wondering if this is related to the monster wave that's coming. She then says it's better for them to head to the military city right away. The scene doesn't change to that square, man. This little city is compact. At the top, a guy with binoculars watches and says he saw some teams leaving there, but no one was coming back. Of the 30 teams that went out to hunt, 3 came back today and 7 returned yesterday. So where had all the rest ended up? The guy says that all these realms opening up are making them work more. And maybe even they, the ones on watch, will have to get involved in this. Then the blonde seems to spot something. The desert train approaching. The guy then tells him not to worry anymore because they'll have to welcome these people from another city. The procedure was to show the flags to stop the train for a few security measures. However, something unexpected happened. The train didn't break, man, it crashed right through the entire wall. An explosion happens, smoke rises, and the people approach to understand what's going on. The top hatch of the train opens and someone comes out. Or actually, it looks like they were thrown out, doesn't it? Because a heap fell to the ground. The guys recognize it as a hunter, and something comes out from inside that thing. Whoa, man. I thought it was our guy's train and our boy was going to be transformed, but there's a giant golden beetle in there. What's going on? And the worst part is, more bugs start pouring out of the train. Kid, look at the size of these bugs. Imagine the fear that would give you. Run for it. Man, this guy has good aim. Clearly, he's got 3 targets and he's aiming right in the middle. A legend. But, well, if you're dead, you gotta hit the creatures, not shoot up into the air. In 10 seconds, the base was already in chaos. The entire place was being overrun by the creatures. And that monster, standing there like a total Giga Chad, was coordinating his army. I like that they put a speech bubble with a sound effect. You can totally understand what he's saying. Now it's clear. That was a different train. And back on ours, the guy asks Jiang if she's really sure the monsters are going to attack the city. He says it's impossible because monsters don't have intelligence, and even if they did attack in an organized way, there's a Class 7 hunter in that place. She just looks away and says she hopes he's right. However, she knows that if it really is a monster wave, a level 7 hunter can't stop it. Even a level 9 wouldn't be unlikely to die in a situation like this. That's when her pupils contract. From a distance, they see Military City 2 engulfed in flames. The people inside already know something's happened. On the radio next to them, a message comes through saying it's from City 2. The person says the entire city is being invaded by monsters right now. They're begging for reinforcements or everyone there's going to die. The High Commander had already died, and they'd lost all control of the city. On the horizon, you could only see the smoke rising and explosions going off. Jiang Ling says that the city really has met its end, and maybe this is that monster wave they talked about. But she orders them not to change direction and to keep heading straight for the city. The bald guy says this isn't a good idea since it must be swarming with creatures. However, she says they have to go there to save the survivors and figure out what happened in that place. One of the guys bangs on the wall in frustration. He says those bastards from Stellar City should all die for taking away the masked power. One of them agrees, saying it even seems like the monsters notice he's no longer around. The entire cabin falls silent, and the little bald guy decides to say something to try to lift everyone's spirits, asking if they noticed something cool that happened. He says that Xiao Hu wearing a mask looked a lot like a mask. Not only the body, but also the height was identical. Come on, what a coincidence. Isn't that weird? It's almost like there. Our boy is standing there like a statue while they say it's the perfect cosplay. It's almost like he's the real one. The bald guy puts a hand on his shoulder and asks if he feels like the real mask right now. Our guy says yes and says that he is the masked man. The guys go silent and start saying they want a signature, an autograph for their brothers who love him. I'm not sure if they're serious or trolling here. I'm confused, folks. I think they want to pretend Xiao Hu is the new mask, right? But they don't know that. Actually, never mind. Jiang Ling tells him not to disappoint anyone with this new identity of his. She then glances outside and sees the city engulfed in flames. In the sky, a swarm of bugs is flying, and she wonders if that's what wiped out that place's military strength. Then, from a distance, they see a group running, crying for help. They were a few soldiers and the last survivors from the city being chased by the golden beetle. With her sharp reflexes, Jiang Ling fires 3 headshots and Aspes of Valorant films the move. She readies a spear and nails 2 more. Man, now she's turned into Leonidas. She's got some serious inspirations. What's going on, girl? The spear kept going, exploded in the sky, and made the bugs rain down. She's fierce. Now the rest of the creatures even ran away, and I would too if I were a bug. No way I'm dying like that. The people who were exhausted from running managed to reach the group. They thank them for the rescue, and she immediately asks what the situation is like in that place. A bearded soldier explains that it's completely destroyed and asks if they're really planning to return to base M2. He says that if that's the plan, she should think twice because the place is completely overrun by monsters, and there are no survivors left. The creature that killed the leader was a 2-meter-tall humanoid insect that took him down effortlessly. He goes up to Jiang Ling and begs her to spare her own life or she'll just die in vain there. She stays silent for a moment. Then she raises her spear toward him. They ask what she thinks she's doing, but she warns that those people were condemned criminals who had escaped. Apparently it's true because the fools look completely scared. However, the bald guy says that doesn't matter now. They need to focus on surviving. But Jiang warns them that these guys had killed the hunters protecting the civilians. The weapons they were using shouldn't be in the hands of these people, but rather in those of other hunters. Additionally, one of them had a bullet wound on his ear, proving he had fought against people, not monsters. The guys start exchanging glances, realizing they've been caught, and one leaps toward her. Yeah, and they were total fools, right? She just swung her arm and cut down both of them. The other one there is smarter, but he's definitely going to get a Leonidas too. He runs toward the civilian saying he'll have to take a hostage, but suddenly he's upside down. What happened? Whoa man, our guy sent out the flying blade. The body falls to the ground and the guy appears behind him, saying he now understands why he didn't recognize those three. One of them asks if they're still heading to base 2, and she says no since she's learned enough and they have too many people with them. However, the guy with the shaved head mentions that, unfortunately, the train was having some issues because they pushed it too hard. But then someone raises a hand and says that if it's a mechanical problem, she might be able to fix it. A cute little blonde girl says she's a mechanic. A bit later, smoke is already coming out of the chimney. The guy says it's incredible how quickly she managed that clearly on a master's level. She says she's nothing more than an apprentice and the impressive one is their leader. Jiang Ling then asks the girl's name, who introduces herself as Ebony Clark. Out of nowhere, after 58 Chinese names, we get an American one. She says her dream is to become the best mechanic in this world. With the girl's help, the train began moving again. They all gave up on the idea of heading to the 2nd Military District and wondered where they would go next. The options were District 4 or District 5. District 4 was close by and would only take 2 days of travel. However, the monsters had come from the north, which was exactly in that direction, meaning it was risky. That's why everyone initially thought it would be better to go to Base 5. But Xiao Shu and Ebony insisted they should go to District 4 since they didn't have enough fuel to reach Base 5. Considering the number of civilians they had with them, they decided it might be the best option. Xiao Shu was standing in the corner when someone asked why he was so interested in City 4. It was Jiang Ling who pointed out that she knew they hadn't yet figured out the fuel situation, so why had he suggested it earlier? The truth is, Xiao Shu already knows that place is completely destroyed. Even if they arrived as fast as possible, it would be impossible for him to save that city. He doesn't say anything and Jiang Ling just stares at him. She then comments that she heard he was personally captured by that person and asks what kind of person they were. The king, a few words, simply says they were a person. She's left speechless, especially since he didn't say anything meaningful for heaven's sake. Meanwhile, at another base, everything's already ablaze. A guy is being eaten by some bugs as they destroy everything. Then one of them is cut down in midair. Whoa man, I thought a hero appeared. But it turns out it was actually a villain, calmly reading his little newspaper. He seems to be studying the sun and the moon. Then he gets up and looks to the side, spotting train. He quickly realizes there are humans in that area. He prepares himself and flies in that direction, calling his entire army. In the train, a bunch of civilians are there, all terrified. A short-haired guy appears and tells them to relax since they're on the outskirts, and no creature would notice them there. Looking out the window, he says that black smoke makes him wonder how much has already been destroyed in that place. The people look downcast until one of them says that wasn't smoke. It was actually the enemy's army approaching. As soon as the bald guy goes to talk to Ling, she says she understands. If that creature was the one who killed the level 7 guy at the base, she isn't sure if she can even survive, let alone save anyone else. Man, the beast has such sharp vision that it's seeing her face in full HD from up close, and it immediately orders its army to exterminate the humans. Oh my friend, but your creature dies. You grab it in the air and rip off its little leg. I don't get it at all. Then it launches an attack toward the train. Wow, it hits the wheel dead on, making everything start flipping, the poor fool's spinning around inside the cabin, and even the poor engineer is dragged away. Or maybe not, since we've got the Giga Chad to save her. What's going on? Is everyone outside already? Well, the train's gone to the beyond. No, actually, it's heading toward the two of them, about to fall off a cliff, but they brace themselves. The two try to stop the fall, but even the ground is crumbling. Ebony is stunned that they're actually managing to hold back something that weighs tons. The people inside celebrate being alive, and she warns everyone to get back on the train and prepare to defend. She looks at the mechanic and orders her to fix whatever's broken so they can escape as quickly as possible. However, for Ling at this moment, human life isn't the most important thing. It's the train. That's because they need to reach the front lines and warn them about what's happening in this region. And in this situation, only the strong will survive to tell what happened here. Her spear is already flying through the air in the midst of the entire army. Once again, it's passing through everything, shooting electricity in all directions. Man, she appears mid-path, grabbing the spear and cutting down another bunch. The people below start wondering how it's possible for a Class 6 person to be this strong. They'd seen a Rank 7 commander fight, and even he didn't make it look this easy. Meanwhile, the whole field is filling with explosions, and the main boss looks to the skies. The folks at the cabin point and say they recognize the monster. That was the creature that had ripped the commander in half. Xiao Shu and Ling observe until she disappears in a flash and is face to face to strike it with her spear. The attack seems to go through, but it moves and vanishes in front of her. With its arms crossed, it's already at her side. She realizes it's way too fast and gets a kick to the gut. She plummets to the ground like a meteor, creating a crater on impact. The group yells for her, but the boss is already flying her way. It readies a scythe and comes in for the attack. The poor girl is immobilized. Or not quite, because she manages to grab her spear in time to defend herself. The problem is that even blocking part of the attack, the scythe is already close to her forehead. Then someone rushes in and lands a punch on the boss. Man, the creature is thrown far, crashing through a bunch of trees. Jiang Ling is confused and Shou Chu says he'll handle it. Meanwhile, she's supposed to take care of the rest of the people. With no other option, she tells him he better not die to that monster. The creature is still being hurled through the trees. It finally stops flying for a bit and plants its feet on the ground. The perfect field is set for the two to face off. Slowly, Xiao Qiu approaches. The boss asks why a human has the same scent as him. Xiao Qiu simply says he's neither monster nor human. He throws his mask to the ground while activating power in his blade. His transformation then begins, and he says it's more accurate to call it an abomination. He places his hand on the blood raven and says he'll finally be able to use its true power. As soon as he transforms, the insect starts feeling fear. Its instincts tell it to make the first move before it dies. It immediately lunges to attack Xiao Qiu. It appears from the side, aiming to hit him on the head. The punch lands squarely. The whole ground trembles and dust rises. But as everything settles, Xiao Qiu is untouched. He asks the monster if that's all it's got. The boss is shocked for a moment and begins throwing a flurry of punches, Jojo style. Once again, dust rises, until Xiao Qiu catches one of the punches and says that's enough. Now it's his turn. The creature has already taken the first hit and can only stand there watching. Man, with a single blow, it's already destroyed on the ground. Since when did our Xiao Qiu level up? Oh, that's right, after absorbing the heart. The system announces that a monster chosen by the gods has been exterminated. This monster belonged to the god known as Deceptive Wisdom, and the raven blade begins absorbing the creature's blood. It's enveloped in green energy, and an eye appears. The sword has gained a new ability, transforming into hundreds of ravens that surround the target and start draining its blood. Xiao Qiu is simply amazed that it's strengthening itself once again. Meanwhile, the rest of the insects are lying on the ground. The short-haired guy tells the leader that the sky has been cleared, and no one got hurt. The bald guy, however, wants to know what happened to Xiao Qiu since he disappeared along with that boss. She stays silent, until someone shouts, saying he's back. Our boy with his super stylish mask definitely returns calmly. The bald guy asks if he took care of the boss, to which he replies yes. The guy is shocked since this was the monster that had taken out the Class 7 commander. Some time passes and the train is back in the desert. Some of the civilians are helping the soldiers recover. Ling sits in front of our boy and thanks him for what he did. He asks what she's talking about. She says he knows very well that he saved her life, to which he replies not to worry. However, she comments that his growth is very strange. It almost feels like he's really the legendary mask. In the blink of an eye, he's already surpassed what's considered the human limit. Then Ebony shows up and says none of the communication systems are working to connect to nearby bases. The issue, though, doesn't seem to be with the system itself. Jiang tells her to explain, and Ebony says something is blocking the signal from going out or coming in from anywhere else. It's as if some entity wants to isolate them in this desert. The system appears before Xiao Qiu, and his worst fear is confirmed, as the mission is to exterminate the monster wave. The army will be led by a monster god and will attack all of humanity's front lines. The goal is to stop this wave, and the reward is to gain half of the transformation to become a monster god. The train keeps moving through the desert while they can't reach anyone. Then, all of a sudden, someone from Base L4 manages to send a message, asking them to respond. Ebony says that's strange since no one responded yesterday. Ling says she understands and tells her to go ahead and talk. She then picks up the phone and says they're from military base number 3 and are carrying a bunch of civilians on a train. The people on the other end tell her to seek refuge at base 4 since they had information that base 2 was wiped out. Ebony gets excited and says they can finally refuel the train. The group starts to relax, saying they finally got some good news. However, suddenly the radio beeps again, and a voice tells them not to believe any message coming from base 4. That place has already been overrun by monsters. Ebony is confused. It couldn't be possible that the creatures were smart enough to mimic a human voice. But Jiang Ling remembers those crocodiles with humans inside and realizes it could be something like that. She picks up the communicator and demands that the person explain what's going on with the base being full of monsters. The person says they're refugees who fled from base 4, which was destroyed 2 days ago. A wave of monsters entered that place, and stupidly, they opened the doors. Even the 3 level 8 commanders had already died in battle. The guy is shocked, especially since level 8 is the peak for a human, and those people even receive the title of hero. However, the voice on the communicator just continues to beg them not to believe anything they hear. He gives them another set of coordinates and asks if they want to take the train to that location. But then another voice chimes in, asking them to come to the city for an interception. Now everyone on the train is tense, unsure of what to believe. They ask a leader what they should do, seeing as things are so chaotic. The group starts wondering if maybe the people saying the base was destroyed were lying. Maybe they were the monsters trying to lure them elsewhere since Base 3 had 3 level 8s. Jiang doesn't know what to think in this situation and asks Xiao Hu for his opinion. He simply responds that they won't go to either option. Both are traps. He recalls that the reason the resistance fell so quickly in his last life was because of the creature known as deceptive wisdom. Under the orders of this creature, they learned not only to mimic but also to deceive and enslave humans. However, what he finds strange is that, in the past, Base 4 never fell. In fact, they held out until humanity launched a counterattack. This is likely because he's no longer on the front lines as much. The problem is that the entire world is starting to move in a direction he doesn't fully understand. He doesn't know if this shift is good or bad. However, whatever the outcome, it wouldn't be worse than his last life. After all, humanity was completely wiped out. A while later, they walked through the forest toward an improvised camp. They were out of fuel, so it was the only option left. Upon arriving, they saw that it did at least look like it was made by humans, and the people who came to greet them really were survivors from Camp 4. However, in truth, they had become the monsters' dogs. They were following the monsters' orders to lure in other survivors. But before they could make a move, Xiao Hu activated the Raven's new ability and killed a good portion of them. They managed to easily clear the rest of the field, but a few of Ebony's allies died in the process. They assured her it wasn't her fault, but she continued to blame herself. I don't know if this was a message she left, if it happened in the past, or if it's already happened. But I know they're back on the train and soon we'll understand everything. Jiang Ling says that the people at Base 4 lost communication at the same time they did. They were likely deceived by the monsters, which is how they lost the base. What she can't believe is that the monsters are so intelligent. However, Xiao Hu confirms that they are now. That's because the god known as deceptive intelligence isn't very powerful. But guess what? He's incredibly intelligent. He's extremely skilled at deceiving humans and very difficult to locate. She then says his sword is very powerful and asks for its name. He replies that it's called the Blood Raven, which he received from a friend. This makes him pensive as he got it from Yan Kwan, who died at his hands. But he remembers that no matter what choice he made, people always judged him. He'd been through this many times, so he wasn't going to look for any meaning in this occurrence. The guy with the binoculars then tells the leader to take a look outside. There seemed to be smoke coming from the other side of the mountain. It was the wave of monsters approaching, and man, there were really a lot of them. Ling comments that they seem to be advancing toward the military base just like they are. Then the little bald guy suggests they take another look. There were a bunch of futuristic tanks approaching as well. They fired and began to blow up the creatures in the sky and on the ground. Ling praises the teamwork and says the monsters will be dead soon enough. Until the bald guy looks back and says that allies have finally appeared. He steps out to greet them and introduces himself as part of the military group from base number 3. But at that moment, the men point their weapons and tell him not to move. A human with a massive sword on his back steps forward. The bald guy was about to say something, but the person with the sword on their back told him to stay quiet or he'd be executed on the spot. Confused, they ask why they're being treated like traitors. The guy responds that they came from the same direction as the monster horde but look unharmed. Then someone steps forward and says not to panic. He knows them. It's our dear blind guy, all shot up. The scene then shifts to military base number 1. This place has the field of redemption, where suspects of treason are sent. A bit later, Jenny says he understands where they came from. Man, our dear Ling is already in jail. What's going on, girl? Shengyi tells her not to worry about base 3. They left in time and only left a bunch of bombs there. That, however, doesn't cheer her up since it means the government gave up on a place that cost trillions to build. He explains she's in prison because humans have started joining the monsters. She says not to worry because she understands and would do the same. The only thing she wants to know is if there are now really monsters as intelligent as humans. Jenny confirms and says it all seems to be the work of some of those god-level monsters. Unfortunately, that's all he knows, and she'll have to find the rest of the answers herself. For now, they'll stay locked up until they receive their next mission. With that, he leaves. She wonders what he meant by finding the answers on her own. She looks back. She's in the room with our guy. Too bad. There are 2 beds. I mean, good thing there are 2 beds. She asks why he's been looking at the military maps so much, and he replies that he's searching for an active volcano. On TV, an announcement is made about the rest of the Star City people who arrived to help the front lines. The announcement tells the frontline people not to be alarmed because reinforcements have arrived. Ling, however, is angry that even in a situation like this, they're more concerned about looking good to the masses. Still, it's impressive that they personally came to the front lines. Then a guy appears at the cell door and says their quarantine is canceled. What's this? They didn't even let them spend a single night in the dark cell. The guard starts handing back their weapons and says they'll each receive a few teams and missions. Jiang Ling knows the investigation isn't over, so if they're already being sent out, the situation must be terrible. Xiao Shu then says he wants the girl named Ebony Clark on his team. A little while later, we see all the people. It seems they'll have to form a team right there. Ling asks if this is all that's left in the redemption camp, and the guy says, unfortunately, most have already been taken. She replies that it's pointless, as having a weak person by her side is worse than having no one. But the guy tells her not to worry about that and just hands her an uktak, saying it'll help her team. She, of course, says that's not her concern, but Xiao Tu seems excited, saying it'll be very useful. Their first mission is to head to the northwest border, which isn't easy. Our guy, motivated, says they're on their way. The guy is puzzled by his lack of hesitation and asks if he didn't hear that the situation there is terrible. Xiao Chu says that's exactly why he wants that place. Besides, he also wants some military maps, a few bombs, and some people. Jiang Ling just looks at him and tells the guy to follow what the boy is saying. They'll choose that area. The guy understands but can't fathom why they want to die. He warns them not to regret it when the time comes. Jiang Ling quickly realizes and asks if he chose such a terrible place because these outlaws have no choice but to obey. He says that's precisely it, but she still thinks it's risky since they can't really force them to fight. As always, he doesn't seem too worried and says whether they win or lose depends on her and Ebony's efforts. 2 hours later, poor Ebony is already saying it's impossible. They're definitely going to die. They had far fewer numbers and were trying to defend the hardest spot. No one was getting out alive, but Xiao Chu just replies that they won't know until they try. He shows her a bomb and says she probably knows how to set it. He hands her a map and tells her to place one at each location on it. But these guys, who look like they're about to die, are all staring. Xiao Chu then walks over to them, stops in front, and says he's tired of them staring. One of them pulls out an airsoft gun and asks if he's trying to get everyone killed. He points it at him and says they were better off in prison, where at least they didn't know for sure they were going to die. But like a true villain, he says if they let him have fun with the 2 girls, he'll let them run. Man, he should have picked another girl because now she leaped at him. Look what happened. She drove her spear into his stomach full. She asks if it's okay to kill, and Xiao Chu says he doesn't care. With that, he's cut down and falls to the ground like garbage. Hey folks, the weapons you have there are worse than water guns in real life. Lane just strikes the spear against the ground, and the guys realize they don't stand a chance. Xiao Chu says it's best if they follow the rules. Otherwise, everyone there is going to die. Suddenly, they hear something behind them. Ebony grabs the binoculars and sees the tanks fighting the monsters again. But some soldiers are becoming breakfast. And the worst part is that this wave seems much larger than the last. He explains that the defense lines are being broken by the creatures, and they're going to need help. The prisoners keep complaining, saying they're clearly being sent to their deaths. Xiao Chu explains that the area they're in is completely overrun by creatures on all sides. Their only chance of survival is to fight together and help humanity win. All they had to do was follow our guy's plans, and he'd create a miracle. He holds up the walkie-talkies and says each one of them will get one. And in this mess, that will be more important than their own lives. He then splits everyone into groups and begins giving orders. He asks if Ebony has learned how to set the bombs, and she says everything's ready. Just then, his walkie-talkie goes off, and Team B reports that they found a ton of creatures. They're standing there in the forest, looking like fools, saying there's no way they're getting out alive. Xiao Fu tells them to go back 300 meters south. Afterward, they're to meet up with Team D, throw some grenades, and run to the other team. The guys are confused, asking if he's some kind of psychic to know that something like this would work. They keep moving through the forest until they come face to face with the river. On the other side, it's full of more creatures. Xiao Chu seems to have predicted this, and they're impressed that he actually knew. Since they have no choice but to obey, they throw a grenade and run off. The grenades explode, but the creatures survive it. However, when they look back, the creatures are gone. The creatures start shrieking, and Xiao Chu keeps giving instructions. The entire forest starts exploding. He continues organizing everyone until he sees 2 groups running out in the open, chased by the creatures. They merge into a single group, and everyone runs toward the rest of the team. The outlaws are impressed that he actually managed to gather all the monsters. Maybe his crazy plan actually has a chance of working. With that, they start a rain of grenades while a huge swarm of monsters approaches. The outlaws get excited, saying they're actually managing it. After all the operations are complete, they return to the mountain peak. With Xiao Hu's plan, Jiang Ling used electricity to start detonating the bombs around them. Because of this, the nearby dormant volcano began releasing a flood of water. The creatures, rocks, and trees in the way were all swept away. In seconds, thousands of monsters were all washed away. The miracle our guy had promised had come true. The generals from Star City were all shocked as our guy had surpassed everyone's expectations. However, at the same time, they started congratulating a man named Sun Ming, saying he had led this plan. As a gesture of goodwill, he sent a plane, and the imprisoned group thought they finally get a reduced sentence and be released. But nope, they're back behind bars, screwed over again. And of course they're outraged when they find out they didn't get any credit for everything they did. This gave the people in the prison a reason to finish off everyone. The scene then shifts to the commander's mansion. Sun Ming says he heard there was an uprising in the prison. He finds this unexpected, as he'd taken the trouble to bring those people back from the front lines. The military man tells Mr. Song not to feel bad. All they had to do was take down those people before there were any further problems. However, there were still 3 people from the military cities he would keep an eye on. Sun Ming responds that he hates clever people and will keep an eye out to make sure nothing goes wrong. The guy then says that before he leaves, he wants to talk about the special weapon he requested. Song just responds not to worry. If everything's going according to plan, the weapons are already on their way. The scene shifts to the battlefield, with soldiers taking aim. On the horizon, a cloud of smoke rises. It's another wave of creatures. The soldiers are terrified. Then a guy appears and tells everyone to fall back to the second defense line. One of the men tells the commander that they've just set up this line, so it would be madness to retreat now. But the commander simply says that reinforcements from Star City have arrived, so they need to obey orders. Someone with enormous calves steps forward and says they've received the order, so they need to clear out. The Trembolona army has arrived, likely with monster blood in their veins. The doctor checks them over and says they're good to go. Man, these guys are competing head-to-head with Mr. Olympia contestants in the injection department. Look at those heart rates. They'll be dead by 40. Sure, you're all pumped up and puffing smoke now, but let's see where you're at in a few years, man. Their eyes gleam, and with that, these new weapons charge in. The doctors remark that these guys are insane for injecting something like that without a second thought. Another responds that of course they would. They're practically humanoids. The other soldiers are terrified, wondering if this is the true strength of Star City. The creatures were all being ripped apart, and the soldiers don't stop. They keep advancing into the monster wave. The rest of the army is shocked, saying if they die this way, it's good for them. But the doctor just says he must be joking since these people can only use their true strength when they're in the middle of these waves. Staying close to everyone else would only limit their potential. The soldier is confused again, and then one of the Trembolona is surrounded by a bunch of monsters. He takes off his mask, and as expected, he's kind of monstrous looking himself. The little monsters actually look a bit cuter next to this incredibly ugly guy. He announces that he can finally show what he's capable of. It's time for the second dose, the third, the fourth, the fifth. The guy just keeps going. After a few more, he turns into an albino Ronnie Coleman. Whoa, man, his hands are already turning red. The monster charges at him, but he grabs it by the head and blows it up. He grins, saying the hunt has truly begun now. Excited, he starts finishing off several creatures. Together with his Mr. Olympia buddies, they're killing everything. Within seconds, hundreds of monsters have been taken down. The poor natural soldiers are terrified that they're making the monsters flee. Meanwhile, the doctors are excited, saying this test group is performing better than they imagined. Now, any regular human could become stronger than a hunter with a few modifications. A short time later, the monster wave has been exterminated, and the experiments return to the center of it all, carrying a head. He throws it to the ground and says that was the strongest one, so it must be worth something. The only thing he wants is to get to the second defense line because his heart's about to explode and he needs more blood. The doctor tells him to wait a bit because he'll need a checkup first, but then the ground starts to tremble. Looking back, the doctor is horrified. Now a truly massive monster appears. The Trembolona guys wonder where that monster came from. The doctor was about to say something, but one of them says it doesn't matter. He'll cut it down. He jumps at the creature and goes for the attack. He lands a hit, but is immediately shocked. He's been caught like a fool. Seeing this, the doctor is sure that the creature is at least class 9. The guy considers injecting something, but the doctor says it's madness since everyone will find out. But the soldier replies that he doesn't want to die and will try to kill this monster. He injects the substance, which hits his back, and he starts going completely berserk. With that, his body begins to change, and he, too, becomes monstrous. The doctor is terrified, saying they're all screwed now. The other soldiers immediately notice and ask why that guy turned into a monster. The transformed man says it's time for this beast to die, but he's shaking and can't do anything. He wonders how it's possible that with 100% of his strength, he can't even move the monster's hand, and it just stares at him. The creature extends its other hand and squeezes him. Man, he starts screaming, telling it not to do that, but it's too late. He's crushed. Xiao Fu tells the doctor that this creature clearly has some level of intelligence. And the worst part is it seems like they're killing humans for fun. The scene shifts to another guy asking what's going on with all these Class 9 monsters. The line goes silent, and he runs out. He reaches the balcony and looks out. Man, it's like Attack on Titan out there. He walks back inside, disappointed like a kid who didn't get a present, and tells Som that it's impossible that so many disaster-level monsters are showing up. He wonders if the mask really killed so many gods of the void that as soon as he disappeared, this happened. Seeing Song, he realizes he probably shouldn't have mentioned the mask in front of this guy. But Song replies that he's right, the gods are attacking personally, because the mask himself can't believe they still want to blame that guy. Song then stands up and asks how many Class 7 hunters there are in the military cities. He replies that there are at most about 40 Class 7s and around 5 Class 8s. If it's Class 9, there are 6, including the 2 of them. Song says that if they gather all of them, they can stop some of these creatures. It's just a pity that he's there as a guest of Star City, so he can't be counted on for the resistance. The soldier clearly doesn't like this, and Song continues, telling him to gather the army and drop a few nuclear bombs on these creatures. The general, however, comments that this would kill a lot of their own as well, so it doesn't make sense. But the bastard just says it does make sense to sacrifice a small group to stop this invasion. The general is fearful, but knows he can't go against Song's authority. Besides, with this option, he won't even have to risk his own life. He then says he understands the orders and will prepare everything now. In the city, people are shouting to get on the walls and load their weapons. Lei appears, asking what's going on. Looking to the side, she sees the Attack on Titan monsters coming man. She realizes exactly what it is, our dear Xiao Q. He says that's the presence of the monster god known as Deceptive Wisdom. The Titan continues roaring, grabbing other monsters on the ground and smashing them. It doesn't show any mercy, even to its own allies. It rolls the remaining creatures into a ball and hurls them toward the wall. The poor soldiers are startled and try to flee. However, it's turning into a literal rain. Told you it was like Attack on Titan or the Beast Titan's attack. What's going on? The Titan is even pitching. Way too intelligent. Stop it already. The two prepare and send another creature flying like a cannonball. It lands right on top of the wall. And there's another one there, holding two little swords like Aaron. But man, look at those eyes. I don't think you stand a chance. Here comes the hand, and it's just like a mosquito swat. The monster even takes the opportunity to shoulder bash the wall, letting several creatures flood into the base. The soldiers who were defending are now being overrun. The only one able to hold her own is our dear Jiang Ling. She asks Xiao Hu if he has any plan to get them out of this. He says no, unless she can buy him an hour. Man, an hour. I don't think that's gonna work. After all, those two are completely surrounded. She says that if they both die here, it wouldn't be without honor. She readies her spear, leaps forward, and charges into the creature. From the edge of the wall, she sees a horde of creatures crawling up. She removes her mask, saying that even though she's always hated her father since her mother's death, she still sees his shadow every day, like in this electric energy she possesses. If it weren't for the mask she wears, she'd have been killed by her own power long ago. She doesn't understand why her father chose to abandon her mother during a monster wave and will never understand. But the time has come to ask him personally. Man, she was in with swag, hurling herself off a wall, saying that she's not giving up her life here but trying to surpass her own limits. She falls like a lightning bolt to the ground, cutting through the creatures. She easily pushes through the monster wave and heads toward the big ones. She aims for a strike at the palm, and I don't think that's going to work, Earl. Whoa, she takes a massive slap. Yeah, she really did, smacking her head on the ground. Thank goodness our dear Xiao Hu is there to save the princess. Well, at least we can say she tried, right? He's already carrying her and places her down to rest. He says she has potential, but a Class 8 creature is still far out of her league. Besides, she was wrong about one thing. He definitely isn't going to die here. He draws his sword, ready for the transformation. It's time for a 1v1 showdown. Energy surges and she gets up. Whoa, I don't think she was supposed to see that. Right away, she asks if it's really Xiao Hu. The monster swings its arm, but he just vanishes and strikes. A series of slashes later and a creature is practically sushi. He goes for the face and delivers a blood slash. It's a direct hit. The creature tries to defend itself. But I don't think it worked. The clean cut passes through. What's this, man? Sliced in half with a red rain all around. Something bursts out. Oh, it's the blood he absorbed. The soldiers are a bit confused, wondering why the strongest monster still died like that. The soldiers are watching, and Song says he never imagined seeing such a humanoid. They were trying to create exactly that, but he had no idea a natural one existed. If they could capture this person, their research would progress tremendously. Just then, a voice on the radio says that 35 nuclear bombs are ready to drop. The soldiers look up and man, they're so ready they're already in the sky. The poor soldiers start questioning if they're just bait to lure the creatures. Meanwhile, Song wipes his glasses, saying their lives have value. The Federation of Humanity will always remember this sacrifice. But then in midair, a purple slash appears and an eye opens. Song is immediately alarmed, recognizing it as a god-level monster. He finds it impossible since a void creature shouldn't appear on Earth. After years of fighting the gods, humans had started to understand a few rules. One of them is a sort of net that exists in the monster realm. Even a disaster-level creature is like a small fish slipping through that net. But a disaster-level monster is like a killer shark trying to pass through. Because of this knowledge, humans knew very well how to deal with gods. All they needed was a strong enough army to wipe out the secret realms that appeared, and Earth was safe. The only one against this idea, however, was the Mask, who said humans and gods couldn't coexist. His insistence on eliminating the gods gradually caused him to lose political relevance. But now the mixed rain was coming down. The god looks at the torpedoes, creating a void around each one. With that, everything disappears into the sky, leaving Song confused. The general knows that if it really is a god-level monster, they don't stand a chance. He sees Song leaving and asks where he's going. Song says that a god's appearance on the battlefield completely changes humanity's future. He must return to Star City now to relay this information. But no one's a fool. They know the bastard is just trying to escape. The commander, however, says he also knows many things from the front line, so he'll share some information. Meanwhile, Jiang Ling is wondering what that creature is. The soldiers are sprawled on the ground, and the monstrous creature is roaring up at the sky. But at the same time, there's a fiend darting around, sending out blood slashes. The monster lands a hit, sending him crashing to the ground. He lands all battered as the void god watches. The mask begins to crumble, and as his face is revealed, the monstrous creature trembles. The creature stares at him, and Jiang Ling immediately senses that the atmosphere has shifted as soon as she sees his face. But she can't understand why this god, who summons Class 9 creatures, is paying so much attention to a human. This treatment makes her almost believe he really is the masked man. The void god keeps watching as our boy simply glares back. Oh, you're shaking now, huh? Jiang Ling realizes that the god is clearly afraid. He begins dissolving into the void, disappearing, deciding to leave rather than stay. With that, the creatures he summoned disintegrate into rubble. The remaining monsters start fleeing, and finally the battlefield is clear. The soldiers cheer, saying they've finally done it. Humanity has been saved once again. Lying on the ground, Xiao Hu mutters that this damned god has always been a coward. He entered the Void Realm countless times in his previous life, but deceptive wisdom hid and never even showed his face. As soon as he retired and let go of his powers, the creature attacked. He never imagined the monster would be so terrified as to flee at the mere sight of him. But he got lucky, since gods are usually level 13. The creature probably wasn't certain he lost all his powers and chose to flee instead, which for him is great, as the mission to stop the monster wave is finally complete. The blood on the battlefield begins flowing toward him. He can feel this power consumed by the lust of desire. First, he needs to suppress this urge to destroy and devour everything. But suddenly, someone asks who he really is. Jiang Ling steps in, saying he's an ally from her team named Xiao Fu, who saved everyone. But the man points, saying it's clear that this guy isn't human but a monster. Song shouts, saying that regardless of what he did, his appearance makes it obvious he's not on humanity's side. He discovered that this guy was involved in the incident with the evil spirit in Da City, and now, once again, other creatures appeared. The military guys agree, saying he's right and that this guy is bringing disasters. But Jiang Ling insists, asking if they didn't see how he saved everyone. Even if he's a monster, he's the only one who could protect humanity at this moment. The commander, however, orders her to shut up, accusing her of protecting the monster. Since they're on the same team, he's certain they're all involved in this monster wave incident. As the frontline commander, he orders them all to be arrested. Man, I'm curious to see what happens. They're surrounded. The guy tries to slash Xiao Ku, but he effortlessly grabs the blade and sends both attackers flying. The commander foolishly thinks he'll win and goes in to punch him. But with a simple sword movement, Xiao Ku blocks the attack. The commander can't believe he's blocking so easily after that battle. Then, out of nowhere, Clingy Song comes in for a hug, but Xiao Fu grabs his arm and twists it completely. Ouch. Then he whips out his sword, giving him a taste of his own medicine. Think he's down? Nope, he's the monster here. Blood on the ground, looks like he's in a different manhwa now. Our guy is cold-blooded, no feelings. He just stares down the fools and locks eyes with the captain. The captain, puzzled, orders the soldiers to capture him. But I doubt they'll last long either, as he summons the Raven Horde. He appears beside the commander, asking where he thinks he's going. The guy claims it's clear he's a traitor and wants to know what he's planning. Xiao Fu tells him not to worry. He's only going to do exactly what monsters are meant to do. He strikes again, spilling another bucket of blood. Jiang Ling is now terrified. Better stay silent, girl. Zhengyi, never one to miss an opportunity, punches the ground and apologizes for being late. This guy is skilled. His hearing and smell are sharper than anyone else's. He knew the truth from the start, and he welcomes the masked man back. He says humanity has been waiting for his return, and once they reach Star City, he'll get everything back. The front lines, the army, the weapons. He'll have control over it all again. But Xiao Q, our guy of few words, doesn't say much, remaining silent. Zhengyi is a bit confused, sensing an aura around him. With that, Xiao Fu vanishes before his eyes. An announcement is then made, saying that with the help of the Union's forces, humanity has achieved its greatest victory yet. Over 1 million monsters have been eradicated, including 25 Class 8s and 12 Class 9s. They show photos of some sacrifices, saying that though they were numerous, it was a glorious victory. They even label our guy as a criminal, saying he sold out to the monsters and caused countless casualties. Everyone is in disbelief, saying he looks like an ordinary human, until He Yao tells everyone to shut up. He says that in this glorious battle, they had brave soldiers fighting for humanity. They'll capture these damn traitors and bring them to true justice. The crowd starts shouting, saying they can't let a criminal escape. One of the reporters then puts a hand on the guy's shoulder and tells him to film it. When they look up, there's our boy standing on top of the building. Oh boy, everyone better start running because things are about to get intense. Yep, everyone's already fleeing. The guys pull out those little Walmart knives, but man, they're brave. I'll give them that. He dodges easily, delivering slaps left and right. 3 more come in. He hands out 3 more slaps. The guys are confused since he's not even using his full power. They don't stand a chance. Reinforcements are arriving, but he starts activating his power. Calmly, he walks through the crowd and locks eyes with He Yao. Right then, He Yao knows it's Xiao Ku. He's terrified, having seen the videos and knowing how strong this guy is. The person everyone believes to be the former masked man. Technically, no one knew his true identity, but this was the perfect opportunity he'd been waiting for. The masked man is respected by the entire nation, but now he has a power that could also give him a chance to win. Xiao Shu keeps getting closer. Meanwhile, He Yao whispers to himself that he has to act quickly. Our guy is right in front of him while He Yao shakes, clutching his enhanced weapon. But Xiao Shu just ignores him and goes straight to the microphone. He Yao collapses to the ground, petrified with fear. And with that, Xiao Fu reveals to everyone that he is the masked man. The crowd is confused since, until now, he was considered a criminal. The last person I expected to be surprised is indeed surprised, Jiang Ling. He tells everyone that he has returned, but not as some special hero, rather as the one thing humanity truly needed, himself. He says it doesn't matter if it's under the masked identity or any other, as he is the only solution to pull him out of this abyss. Clearly, his absence for just a short time showed that everything would spiral to an end without him. The crowd is stunned, saying that the masked man they knew was much humbler. But our guy continues, saying that out of pure fear of his power, they'd exiled him this way. Weakness isn't a sin, but arrogance is. And that's why this time he's not just asking. He's taking all the resources available to become as strong as possible. He announces that from this day forward, the entire world belongs to him. Man, he's aiming to become a true monster. The guy's got guts. Jiang Ling finally understands the words her mentor spoke back then and why Xiao Fu knew so much about the gods. I'm not sure if it's sadness or excitement, but she's crying. And strangely, the whole crowd is thrilled, saying the masked man has finally returned. Some even kneel, praying to him. He's hyped, saying, I want to see those like on this video that helps Mamoru make more juicy content for his viewers, activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.